was good. I came home, done.
I'd like to call to order the Charter Township of Chesterfield regular township board meeting for Tuesday, May 9th, 2023 at 7 p.m. to order. Could we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Clerk Barry, could you call the roll?
Supervisor Kersten.
Here.
Treasurer Elliott.
Here.
Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Joseph. Here. Trustee Demink.
Here.
Trustee Vosberg.
Here.
Clerk Barry is here.
Item 4, approval of agenda. I would like to make a motion to approve the agenda with the removal of item 9I. Reason for this is to meet with the further elected officials and again discuss this in further detail and return it on the June 13th meeting. Do we have a motion of support? Support. Motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Demink. Clerk Barry, would you call the roll?
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
No.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Item 5, presentations. We do have a presentation tonight. The Rotary Club is here. The podium is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, board. We are Anchor Bay Rotary Club. We're happy to be here this evening. We've been working with Josh Sonnenberg on a Salt River Preserve project. It's a pollination garden. It's been in the works for several months. We're pleased to be here tonight to present the check in the amount of $6,000 to fund that project. Josh, if you'd like to maybe step over, we'll present you with the check. And we certainly appreciate the opportunity to work with the township. We've created a really nice partnership, and we don't take it for granted. We're happy to do so. So on behalf of Anchor Bay Rotary to Chesterfield Township, we'd like to present this check for $6,000 for the pollination garden project. I don't know if Kathy wants to get in here.
Should we stand up? Do you want to stand up?
Here, you can stand on my side. Here.
It's okay.
We do this all the time, can you tell?
It's okay.
Okay, I don't want to block anything.
You're not.
All right, here we go. Okay.
You're coming in front of the podium.
We can actually give you the real check,
Oh, that's
unless you
fine.
want to
No,
take
we're
this
good.
one,
Yeah, I'd
but,
like to have my office.
There's the actual check. And again, thank you all. We're very happy to do this. Appreciate the opportunity.
Item 6, department reports. We'll start out with Trustee Demink.
First, from the Parks and Rec Leisure Services Division. Summer season. The season begins with Chesterfield Township Parks opening May 26th for the summer season. Brandenburg Park Splash Pads is open daily from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., weather permitting, from Memorial Day through Labor Day weekend. Facility rentals have limited remaining availability. Dog parks. Comments regarding the proposed location and creation of a dog park in Chesterfield Township will continue to be collected through the end of today, May 8th. Visit chesterfieldtownship.org to let your voice be heard. Also a note from Planning Commission. As of last week, Tuesday, the Planning Commission worked on it for 6 months and came up with the zoning for the cannabis, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, ordinance. And it was passed by planning by a 9-0 vote that the proposed cannabis, marijuana locations will be in M1 and M2 districts with a 1,000-foot buffer, 1,000 feet from churches, schools, libraries, and any residential, R1A, B, C, and condos and apartments. That's what was passed by planning. There's still got to be some regulatory ordinance work done between board members and Mr. Siebert's office. Aren't we talking the first meeting in June, Supervisor? In May? Okay, we're going to go for it the next meeting in May to bring it in front of the board, and it'll come in front of the 7 of us. And if we approve it, once we get the regulatory, should be, I don't know how much longer, just a few things, and then the licenses will be granted. But it went through planning. Everybody on planning worked very hard on it, myself being the only elected official, and all the rest of the planning members are residents, just like you folks. Men I worked with, went through a lot of discussion, different ideas, and that's where it was put. So I just wanted to pass that on. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. Trustee Anderson.
Thank you. The Chesterfield Township Fire Department is in the process of its accreditation, and they have requested, or the Chesterfield Fire Department is gathering public input for their upcoming accreditation. Residents and business owners are encouraged to visit the fire department's website and complete the short external stakeholder survey. There will also be an in-person question and answer session this summer where residents can help develop the department's strategic plan, which will guide growth over the next 5 years. Visit chesterfieldfire.org for more information. Thank you.
Trustee Jones.
Thanks. Just adding to a couple of things from our Public Safety Liaison meeting, which was held on May 3rd. There is some notable activity in the Public Safety Department that I'd like the board and the residents to be aware of. Our 2022 annual report is rapidly coming. The completion date is right upon us, and we should have that annual report soon. We have background investigations underway for firefighter, police officer, dispatcher, as well as our cadet and public safety aid positions. We've had recent oral boards, as some of those Trustee Anderson participates in, conducted for police, firefighter, as well as the cadet and public safety aides. The fire department recently conducted a mass casualty training. There was, I think the intention is to bring that training forward to all township employees. Of course, the police open house is this Saturday, May 13th, from noon to 3. I will be out there with badge 55, my buddy. We'll have our snow cones, and we're looking for hopefully good weather. Bias, ethics, and taser training for the police department is underway. Director Bassett will graduate from the Oakland Fire Academy on May 12th. Lieutenant Kroll and Sergeant McPhillips will graduate from the Northwestern Police Staff and Command on May 12th as well. And Cadet Matthew Ford's graduation from the Macomb Police Academy will also take place on May 12th. So May 12th will be a very busy day. One other notable issue from that meeting was a pretty spirited discussion about something that is already present in the department, and what Trustee Anderson and I were hopeful for was to engage in a conversation a little bit more fully on the effects of critical incidences and trauma that our first responders suffer as a result of carrying out their duties. We have an accreditation process that has a protocol in place, and the request that we made was to look a little deeper into that and start defining what is a critical incident and how do we make sure that our first responders are taken care of. So this was a fairly, I guess, involved discussion, and something that we'll continue to talk about in our public safety liaison meetings. In addition, Mr. Supervisor, I have an update, which isn't much of an update, but an update from my service as the library liaison. So at their most recent meeting in April, there was a lot of discussion and follow-up from the presentation that Mr. Sonnenberg made regarding the community center and the ability for the library to perhaps have some space and a presence there. I think there are a lot of good ideas, and the library board has indicated a commitment to continue to partner with us and talk about specifics. I would like to see some presence in that community center from the library, and I hope they find a way to make that work. Lastly, as it relates to the library, there is a ribbon cutting ceremony and a really great new space at the library. It's referred to as the Buddies Makerspace. Buddies, local franchise that opened here in the township, donated the sales from an entire day to the library in order to make the makerspace area available. It's a very, very innovative and great idea. We have a lot of equipment there for residents to use and patrons to use, including a 3D printer, along with a number of other things, craft and otherwise. So the makerspace, Buddies Makerspace, ribbon cutting is scheduled for May 22nd at 4 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The Election Commission met today and approved a new 4-year agreement with Lonscrew School Districts to provide election precinct locations. So that will take us through the 2028 general election. Nothing had changed from our previous agreement with them, simply the dates. So we were able to get that piece of business out of the way. Also discussed the changes, the upcoming changes to elections due to Proposal 22-2. There's a lot of discussion about legislation that's been moving through regarding all the provisions of Proposal 22-2, but everything that has been presented and passed through the House and Senate so far are not operational in nature. The one thing that they were able to determine was the presidential primary date, which is in February, the fourth Tuesday in February in 2024. Chesterfield has no elections scheduled for this year at this time. If something should come about due to an unexpected office vacancy or a ballot proposal, we will let you know that as soon as possible, but the timeline for that is closing very quickly, so we do not anticipate seeing a November election for us this year. Our first available election for Chesterfield will be in February of 2024. In the clerk's office, we do have our community shred day that is coming up, so if you have any sensitive documents that you would like to have shredded, that is Thursday, June the 8th from 12 to 2, and you may go onto our website and register for that event. You can bring 2 banker boxes or similar sized totes per person. We do not accept cell phones, calculators, license plates, 3-ring binders, anything of that nature, and if you go on our website, you can find all the other items that will not be accepted at that time. But if you have any paper documents, then those would be acceptable. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. I will turn it over to Director Vanderson.
Good evening, everyone. Michelle Vanderson from the Parks and Rec Department. Tonight I am here to present an update, a progress report on our comments from the dog park. We opened it up, as you remember from last meeting, to public comments. We wanted to get that public feedback and see how Chesterfield Township kind of take a temperature on how we feel about a dog park, especially in the backyard here at the township offices. So we went through, we absorbed all of those requests and information back to us. And so we have it all. We're still collecting it through the end of today, but as of yesterday, we had 80 humans and 1 dog answer us. We had a couple more trickle in today, and like I said, we'll continue to take those, but overall, the comments have been incredibly positive. Everyone that has responded yes wants a dog park. They also gave us some feedback on ways to improve it already before we've even built it. They gave us ideas for it. A lot of the comments came back asking for a large and a small dog area. They wanted a way to key in, like a key fob system where we could monitor and maintain who is coming into the dog park. And they also overwhelmingly were happy to pay a price for it as well, which was nice to see. So they can see that that maintenance will go right back into the dog park, and it'll be able to present a larger impact on the community with more of that financing included in it. So I know it's all about the numbers. We do have funding for this project. It's in the 2023 approved budget. After the initial dog park is built, we're also going to look for alternative funding, so sponsorships for that ongoing maintenance, as well as memorial donations is an opportunity as well that you can add into the park. We've seen that happen in other places, and you've seen in Clinton Township especially, it's been very helpful. A lot of the comments did reference Clinton Township as one of the premier dog parks in the area and something to look forward to and a place to be. So we're going to be using that and collecting all of that information to create this functional space. When we go out to bid, which is our next step, we're going to be looking for bidders who are capable of doing the work in a timely fashion, who are able to take our money and really expand it as far as they can, and people who are capable of getting that quality of work done that we're looking to see here in Chesterfield. So it makes sense for this space. It's on high ground. We have that water source close by when we emptied the water source in the front, and so it helps to streamline our processes. Logistically, it makes a ton of sense for it to be here, and so that's what we're going to plan for moving forward. The quotes, like I said last time, will include pricing for the tear down of existing structures, that ground prep, fencing, park features, and again, creating that potential water source that'll pull it right into the park area itself. On the management side of a dog park, that's where I've been doing a lot of my research. A lot of the building is more on facilities. The actual running of that dog park will fall under Parks and Recreation here. And so we are talking to several different dog park managers. Like I said, Clinton Township is one. Novi and Northville both have shared dog parks where they allow their citizens to go back and forth between the two. And a lot have a lot of history in their dog parks, and they're able to manage it very well. And so we plan to continue to talk to them. We'll be creating restrictions for the dog park of who's using it, code of conduct that you'll have to sign off for, and again, a fee structure that makes sense for us here. We noticed that a lot of, like I said, those comments align with it, and so we'll probably end up doing something very similar to what they have. So if you're looking to do, or to take a look at a place that we're trying to be like, those are a couple of good features to go to. Like I said, Novi, Northville Township, and Clinton Township as well. So we'll continue to take comments. The public comments will be open on that citizen request link. You can do that all the way through midnight tonight. We'll still accept all of those, and we'll review them after the comments close at midnight. If you came to this meeting tonight just for the dog park comments and you're unable to stay through the end of it, we'll step into the hallway so that you can have a chance to say your comments here to us directly in the Parks and Rec Department. If you choose to use your time to comment publicly at the end of this meeting, we'll still accept them in just the same way and put them into our feedback for it. That's all I have for you. The next time I come back to the board, I'll be presenting with our recommendation with a bid for the project to move forward for a dog park in Chesterfield Township. Thank you.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Mr. Bell.
There are no further department reports tonight. Item 7, the consent agenda. Clerk Berry.
All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any item is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Public comments on the consent agenda items are permitted. Approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of April 11th, 2023. Approval of the payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department.
Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Clerk Berry.
Support.
Supported by Treasurer Elliott. Comments from the public?
Paul LaFata, 48055 Mallard. In the bill run, there's 3 general ledger numbers in the water and sewer: 591-441-740, 591-541-740, and 591-542-740. Those were all overspent by Mr. Sorka, the assistant Corsica, the assistant water and sewer director, when he purchased all those parts from Ferguson Water Supply. Those were overspent by $5,000 when he did that. Since then, there's been continuous expenditures against those general ledger numbers, In tonight's bill run, there's 10 invoices on general ledger number 591542740 for $1,940. Now, if we're using BS&A and we're linking it with our budgets and our general ledger numbers to our purchase order system, I don't understand how this could happen unless we're not using BS&A, because 2 board meetings ago, we paid $7,600 for e-maintenance, which was supposed to be replaced with BS&A. So we're using redundant software. It's costing the township more money, and I think we spent over $300,000 in this technology, and it's been over a year and a half, and we're still showing that we have no control. There's no checks and balances. And it doesn't seem to faze anybody. And the other thing is, it's only April, and we've expended budgets. So somebody needs to check a list of what went right and what went wrong, so that next year you don't cut yourself short in April. Thank you.
John Speaker, Chesterfield Township. The bill run is a total train wreck, and I agree with Mr. LaFata. So on the BS&A software that we have, the problem is they're doing overrides, so in budget amendments, and that's what the issue is. In a budget amendment, we're just adding to the deficit here in Chesterfield Township. On the bill run, though, you know, I'm fiscally conservative, and I look at that bill run every 2 weeks, and I go through it in detail. And again, I've been up at this podium, and I've mentioned it before. Nothing irks me more than I've got 3 full-time officials making anywhere from $90,000 to $100,000 plus in this township. So to nickel and dime the residents, for example, under the supervisor's office, you did a luncheon for the governor's luncheon for $50. That got charged to the taxpayers, to the residents. State of the Shelby Chamber for $25 for the supervisor's office. Where I do agree, under human resources, I'm going to guess that was Mr. Duchesne or somebody in that office that did a webinar for female-to-female hostility. I think that's a good one, but I think there's other ones that need to be addressed dealing with the webinar with employees that I didn't see in there. Under the treasurer's office, again, you know, a full-time employee over $90,000, Ms. Kathy Elliott, to the Macomb County Chamber of Governors, to the taxpayers for $50. Facilities and operations, we bought a chipper in the township, and we're paying a tree service company $4,950 for one job, another $2,700 for another job. A question on the bill run deals with Brandenburg. Apparently there was a safe bought for Brandenburg. Is that a replacement on a safe that we had? Just out of curiosity, that's a question. Again, tree service at Brandenburg for $1,700. I've got water and sewer that's charging for an oil change for one of our trucks. I've got a fleet manager, and I've said this before, on staff at $80,000+, and we're paying, you know, $166.76 when we've got somebody on staff that can do it. We're paying Midwest Strategy $4,000. I've yet to see an investment on return for the taxpayers' money for this lobbying firm. And again, you know, they took one of our representatives on the taxpayers' dime out to dinner for $154.18. Representative Lightner. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the public? I have a motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Treasurer Elliott, to approve the consent agenda as read. Clerk Berry.
Clerk Berry, aye. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
No?
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 9, public hearings. There are no public hearings scheduled tonight. We'll move to regular agenda. Item 9A. Clerk Berry.
9A is to authorize the Township Supervisor to sign the appropriate document allowing 2020 Outdoor Media LLC to research locations for billboard usage on township property.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Joseph, supported by trustee Vosberg. I believe the individuals are here tonight. Again, this just, this is a plan to brand the township and create some highlights for the community. So with that being said, any questions? Trustee Joseph?
Yeah, not so much a question as a comment. Mr. Supervisor, I heard from some residents prior to tonight's board meeting that emailed me specifically to this particular agenda item and referencing it to a potential lease of township property. And I want to be very clear that any lease of township property would result in a public, hearing, and our board would seek input from the public regarding the lease of any or sale of any township property. This is not that. This is an individual who is a local outdoor media advertiser with an impeccable track record. He's worked with a number of other communities, and most recently is working with Commissioner Brown, I understand, to receive valued vendor status from the county. This individual has done public-private projects, and in the projects involving the public, specifically with the county, there is a tremendous amount of advertising for county events and recognition of county programs, specifically the Veterans Program, Meals on Wheels, and anything that can assist residents. This particular individual, who is the CEO of this company, Mr. Aram, is also very, very involved with local chamber groups and small businesses. So when an individual company is unable to afford the high price of advertising, and anybody that knows the billboard industry will tell you that these are national companies. They charge fairly significant rates to advertise, and in Mr. Aram's case, what he does is partners with local businesses at a much reduced cost. So there's a win for the township, there's a win for local businesses, and what appealed to me the most was when the township began to look at how we brand the township consistent with the master plan. So there was a lot of discussion in this particular area. When you kind of roll into Chesterfield, how do you know what you're in Chesterfield? Where are the and when we started looking at the cost of markers and marquees and branding type things, the cost is quite high. This was an idea to ask somebody who's in this industry to maybe partner with us and take a look at how he may be able to help us brand the township in a way that is cost effective. And again, I appreciate Mr. Aram. This agenda item tonight has no identified sites. There is no agreement to lease any property or sell any property for any advertising. This, as I understand it, allows the research to begin, and also an application process which must go through the state to make sure that any advertisement are appropriately within the confines of state regulations. So I appreciate Mr. Aram. I appreciate this agenda item. I know he's met with a number of board members, and I was grateful to hear him out and understand a little bit about what he would like to do and how it will benefit the residents. So I enthusiastically endorse this and would like to see support from all of the board members. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Comments from the public?
Joe Kadich, I live on Sutton. I don't completely understand why we're looking to sell property or lease property, put billboards on our property. I'm fairly old, and I remember when billboards were real billboards driving along the highways, and they weren't liked by anybody. A lot of them have disappeared, most of them have disappeared since the state put some control on how close they could be to the highway. I don't think as a citizen of this township, I'd like to see any billboards advertising along, any place along here. Doesn't brand a township at all. All it does is say we're looking for money, and we don't care what we do to get it. Thank you.
Further comments from the public? Final comments from me. I'll just follow up on what Trustee Joseph said. Met with this individual. This is not about money. This is not about selling land. This is partnering with an individual who has a impeccable record, bringing some branding and signage to our township, and it'd be an honor to partner with them. And this is just the first step of what is a long process. So that being said, Trustee Voss.
And part of that long process, would that include a contractor would have to come back to the
Correct.
board once sites were
Absolutely.
located and perhaps ideas on how to use that?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion by Trustee Joseph, supported by Trustee Vosberg, to approve item 9A. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Joseph. Aye. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 9B.
Item 9B is to consider the Planning Commission's recommendation to amend the Township Zoning Map, including 17 parcels of land along 26 Mile Road from I-94 to County Line Road, from C3 General Commercial, M1 Light Manufacturing, and C1 Local Commercial to MX2 County Line Crossings Mixed Use District.
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Deming,
Second.
supported by Clerk Berry. Mr. Palin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Yes, this item in front of you, the concept has been in front of the board several times before, starting back with the master plan through workshops, public hearings, and then last year the zoning district itself was adopted by the board. This is kind of the final step in those goals and objectives of the master plan to amend the zoning map to change those 17 parcels to the MX2 zoning district. The intentions of that district are to provide for a village-scale development to accommodate commercial businesses, professional offices, hotels, technology, and missing middle residential housing. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval. Obviously, they felt it is consistent with the master plan because it's implementing the goals and objectives, promotes the health, safety, and welfare of the general community, provides walkable streetscapes, and to promote small incremental development alongside larger developments. A couple of concerns that there might be with this that I wanted to address. Any existing uses in the area would be able to continue until that use is willfully vacated, regardless of ownership. And the concept plan that is in the master plan, has been shared amongst the board, is in the packet, is nothing that's final. The only thing that's set in stone is those zoning regulations. That concept plan is just a concept and subject to change. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Any comments from the board? Trustee Deming.
As stated by Mr. Palin, this was vetted by the Planning Commission. The members raised their questions in depth and studied it, and they passed it unanimously.
Any comments from the public?
I have a question, probably won't be answered, but these properties on 26 Mile Road, are they going to benefit from this sewer line that the residents are on the hook for a $13.75 million bond? Does this enhance the value?
Your question is, are they going to benefit?
Yes.
Yes, that's the whole reason to get the sewer line up there. So
they're going to be assessed, as soon as this is changed, then the property value is going to go up, and they're going to be assessed, so that they're going to help make the $1 million yearly payment for the bond?
as users tie into the system, yes, we will receive an income for that, which will offset the cost of the sewer.
Does the property get reassessed then, so the value goes up?
Well, I'm sure once they develop it or come up with a plan, yes, our assessing department would be all over it.
So, in other words, when they rezone, they're getting an increased value for the rezoning. They've already got an increased value because of the sewer line. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan, did I miss anything there? Thank you. Any further questions from the public?
24 Laurel Oak Lane, Chesterfield. I sent you a letter a week or so ago outlining my client's opposition to this rezoning, Paul and Donna Painter. I think I set forth some good reasons why not to do this. Let the free market decide how the land's going to be used out there. Mr. Painter's been there for 20-plus years, his factory, he could expand. Jonathan says he would be, in essence, a non-conforming use, but he could expand more. There's a hospital facility being built just to the east of Mr. Painter's place is a mini storage. So it seems to me there's a lot of non-conforming uses that you're going to be dealing with. And in this conceptual plan, which they say is not cast in stone, shows a road running from 26 Mile Road to Verdun. And in the Painter situation, it would bisect their property. And they've had a cell tower on the southern end of their property for years. There's an easement in place to get to it for the cell companies. So how does this make sense? And I pointed out in other areas in this community, developers accumulated land. They went through a PUD or a similar situation to develop multiple parcels that were accumulated. Here you have 17 parcels. It doesn't appear in a public record that any of these property owners asked that their properties be rezoned. So on behalf of the Painters, I would ask that you not adopt this motion. And I would also, and I know you're not going to read it, I do have a letter from November 4th, 2022 in a different matter on the Lennox Township side of 26 Mile Road, and I'll give this to the supervisor, where I pointed out several Michigan appellate court decisions that limit the ability of municipalities to say you have to use your property based on some conceptual plan or future road expansion or existence where there is no road. And I don't think Chesterfield Township or any other township has jurisdiction over roads. That was taken away by the legislatures in the 1930s during the Depression when townships throughout the state had no money to maintain roads. So it was up to the state, the county, and cities and villages, not townships. So I'll give this to the supervisor, and I would ask that you, A, not adopt this motion that was made, and postpone it to look at the big picture of this situation, especially when none of these property owners asked the township to rezone their property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gendernau. Any further comments? I'll bring it back up to the board. Any comments from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor, I was wondering, as I was listening to Mr. Gendernau, the point that he made that was most interesting to me was the impact on the current property owners, and I was wondering if Jonathan could speak to that. So if I'm a property owner in this area and I'm a C3 general commercial, what happens to my property when it becomes a MX2 designated mixed-use district?
Are you talking about currently used property that's developed, or is that what you're referring to?
Well, we have two, because we have some property, obviously, that has not been developed.
Right.
But I guess development is also, we don't know what that property owner may be doing in the way of planning. There could be a situation where they haven't submitted a formal plan, but maybe they're working on financing or the development plan of some type. What happens to the non-developed and the developed properties?
So all properties would now be subject to, if this were approved, would be subject to the MX2 zoning regulations. Anything that is already developed would still be subject to those regulations, but they could continue as they are until that is vacated. If it's a non-conforming use, they can continue the use till the use is vacated. If it's a non-conforming structure, that structure can continue to be used and maintained until such a time that it would be destroyed beyond 50% of its value, that it would have to be rebuilt to the current regulations.
So can you speak to the second half of that, which is I'm a C3 property owner and I have not submitted a plan, or I don't have anything actively going there, just I'm working on my financing and my investment. What happens to my C3 use, that I intend to do 2 years from now? So part of my plan was to acquire the land 3 years ago, and I'm now saving or planning to develop in a C3. That was my original reason for purchasing the project, the property. I have a C3 vision, but it's not materialized yet.
Sure.
What do I do now?
Yeah, nothing would be able to be done under the previous regulations. It would all be with the MX2.
And do we know, have we talked with the property owners there? I realize that we have, a lot of parcels, but do we have any feedback from the property owners in terms of how they, feel about their property that they purchased going from C3 to MX2? I know it's part of our vision and a part of our plan, but what about those that have skin in the game in terms of costs and money that they spend on the property? What do they get to do with their C3 vision? And do we know? Did we talk to them?
There was, going back, there was a couple more high-level meetings, whether they be workshops or the master plan public hearing where this was talked about, where the general public was invited. There was a few residents or property owners at those meetings. And then on this specifically, when this was in front of the Planning Commission, all of those property owners were given notice in the mail that there would be a public hearing on the map amendment, so they had their opportunity at the Planning Commission public hearing to voice any concerns. So, from 2019 up until now, there has been several opportunities, but the public hearing for the map amendment is the only one where those specific property owners were noticed.
Thank you.
One more comment from the public?
My name is Bernadette Kuzminski McKenzie, and I am voicing my opinion along with Mr. Gendernellik. We've owned property over there over 30 years. We're actually 2 parcels over from the painter's property, and my mom and dad own that property, and we purchased it as such, the way that we purchased it. And it was broken down into 2 parcels, and my brother and sister-in-law are here too. And we're in favor of Mr. Painter in his parcel and our parcel also. We don't want it rezoned. We want it as is. And let them take each parcel. If you want 17 parcels to come up, let each parcel be zoned appropriately and not kind of come and take over 17 parcels. And we don't know 10 years from now if that's going to even go through. And if it doesn't, then technically we're out of luck is what happens. And that's not right either. It's not fair and equal for the property owners that own the property right now.
How you doing, folks? That's my wife there. I've owned that property quite a while there. We help farm it and everything. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law that are here, we agree with Paul Painter and his lawyer on this. You guys can't take control of the property. It's wrong. We want it stopped too. Any of you have a question for me? None of you live there. If you have the property, when the township comes out and reaffairs it, just all went up again in taxes and everything. And I know Mr. Paul Painter for a long time. He did have a building that was going to be built out in front, because I know the people that used to work for him, and in the back, and I know about the towers and everything. There were supposed to be 2 buildings in the back and 1 in the front of that. I remember him even talking about being a Burger King or something up front there. They talked about that. If you're going to stop him from doing that, that's wrong. They've been there a long time supporting this township. And so was the other property. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jonathan, is there anything you want to address there?
I can answer any questions along with that. You know, it's not, like I'd already stated, you know, properties continue to exist as they are. And the MX2 is just a more modern zoning code. I mean, as you can see by the zoning map that's up on the screen, you know, there's a mixture of general commercial, light manufacturing, local commercial. So this, you know, a lot of the same uses are allowed. It's just a different style of regulation that allows for the mixed use and more creativity to, you know, satisfy those goals that were developed during the master plan process.
Thank you.
Ken Kuzminski, 37420 26 Mile Road. I'm a property owner there. I never received any kind of information saying that they wanted to rezone it, come down. What are your thoughts on it? They just decided that they want to make this MX2, which it disadvantages me because before this, I had people approaching me all the time to buy the property or whatever. And now, all of a sudden, since the MX2 zoning, they're talking about doing it. I haven't gotten any phone calls or anything. I don't want to talk about who wants to buy the property, but I don't feel that it's right. Let the people decide on what they want it zoned. The people that live there and the people that own the property. I don't see how this benefits the community at all by zoning it this. You're going to put a street in, which, like Mr. Gendernellik said, how is all that going to work? If you plan on putting a road in, you're going to have a huge developer, aren't you, to want to develop all this property at once? Is that even possible? Is anybody looking into that? That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the public? Bring it back up to the board one more time. Any comments from the board? Trustee Joseph.
As I listened to Mr. Gendernellik's presentation and we heard from the residents who have property, it struck me, I was thinking about my time on the Planning Commission and my first view of the MX2 district and the concept. And it was, in my opinion, a wonderful concept. There are really some very innovative ideas there, and I was all for the concept. The difficulty I have now is the same difficulty I had when my kids were younger. They played a game called Farmville, and the kids could put in different pumpkin patches and do all kinds of different things with the land, and I like that idea too. But I didn't have any money I didn't have any skin in the game. I didn't own any of the property. It was sort of, I was free to have an idea of what I thought was great and what I thought wasn't great. I don't know that I have any right to take my opinions like I had with my daughter's Farmville game and apply it to the reality, which is these people own property for many, many years in a district that was C3. I don't know that I have the ability or the right to say, I like an MX2 design, so I'm going to negate your investment in your property. I have a real hard time with that. It strikes me and feels a lot like eminent domain without any real review of that. Like, I understand the government can say we're doing this for the good of the community, but I think that stops right when we get to somebody's property line. I don't think that we can say to a business owner or to a landowner, we're going to rezone your property, and whatever you thought you, your children, or your grandchildren were going to do with it, they cease to exist now, and you will conform to an MX2 district, even if I like the MX2 district. It just strikes me as something that I don't feel I have the ability to do, not in a righteous way. And I think the gentleman who spoke about, yeah, it may have been a public consideration for a long time, but he didn't seem to have a real understanding or a lot of notice. And if you're going to change somebody's life in an investment of this type, I would even envision that we do a little bit more than send a postcard. We send a postcard. My neighbor wanted to put up a fence, and she needed ZBA approval, and the township sent postcards to the whole neighborhood to make sure that that fence was something that if we can send a postcard to a fence, can't we make a call? Can't somebody from our planning department make a personal contact and say, look, we're going to change the landscape of this township, and we think that this MX2 is the way to go, but you own X amount of acres, and we think that you should get a little bit more attention since you're the one that's going to be subjected to major changes in your land use. So I could go on, and I know that angers some of my friends on the left, so I'll just wrap it up with this. I think this is an overreach, and it is, despite the fact that it's part of our master plan, it reeks to me of eminent domain without the due process that goes along with that. I agree with Mr. Gendernalik, and I agree with the property owners that spoke, although I do think that the MX2 is a great concept. It is exactly that. And when you see evidence that it impacts people's lives, you got to pause, and that's what I think I need to do tonight. So I'll be a no vote.
Thank you. Any further comments from the board? I have a motion by trustee Domingue, supported by clerk Berry, to approve item 9B. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Domingue.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, no. Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
No.
Supervisor Kersten.
No. Item 9C. Thank you, Jonathan. Yep, a little bit. No, we're moving on to the next item.
We can't.
We can take your notes, we can get with you after. Karen, do you want to step out with her? If you want to stick around at the end of the meeting, we'll listen. Yep. Item 9C.
Item 9C is to consider the Planning Commission's recommendation for the rezone of property located on the south side of 21 Mile Road, east of Continental Drive, from C3 General Commercial to M1 Light Manufacturing, parcel ID number 091260110.
So moved.
Trustee Domingue, supported by Supervisor Kersten. Mr. Palin?
Thank you. This is a proposal to rezone to light industrial for the purpose of outdoor storage. The applicant intends to operate a boat service center for the Cabela's Bass Pro Shop. The M1 is needed for the outdoor storage. This would be an extension of the existing M1 that's in the area. It is consistent with the master plan. And the board did see this briefly in the past when they amended the consent judgment to remove restrictions on the property. So with that, the Planning Commission is recommending approval.
Thanks, sir. Any comments from the board?
If this was vetted by planning also, and the people that plan on buying the property were present, it's going to be in addition to Bass Pro Shops, Cabela's, for their boat division. Passed unanimous.
Any further comments from the board? Trustee Joseph?
Just a quick one. This is an extension of that development that we've been hoping for and waiting for quite some time. The ability to see something in the retail space, especially as big as a partnership with Bass Pro Shop or Cabela's, is a real big deal. And I know a lot of residents have asked, like, what's happening with that development and what's going on with that development. And this is a step in the direction that I think the residents would like to see. That particular area is one that handles one of the downsides of development is traffic. And we don't experience traffic issues out there because of its proximity to Hall Road and 21, and you have the Town Center Boulevard, which is a private drive. So we're able to handle a lot of retail in that area without impacting subdivisions and neighbors and traffic. So I'm glad to see this one, and appreciate your work on this, Mr. Domingue.
And just a piece of history on this one. This is one that we went back, board, I want to say over a year ago, and cleared some of the restrictions that were on this property, one being an ice arena for the area. So thank you, Jonathan. The reason, again, I'm going to support this is just some specific reasons. It conforms to the district that's already within the property. It coincides with our master plan that is long and historical and recently updated. It has no impact on public services. It enhances the area as stated already by Trustee Joseph. There are no roadway or thoroughfare issues. and there are enough other parcels available, and the lot adjacent to it is an M1 extension to that district. And again, it fits our master plan as directed and as approved by this board. So with that being said, open it to the public for comments. Any comments? None being said, I'll bring it back up to the board. I have a motion by trustee Demink, supported by Supervisor Kersten, to approve 9C as presented. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 9D.
Item 9D is to adopt proclamation number 2023-04 to declare May 14th, 2023 through May 20th, 2023 as National Police Week in Chesterfield Township.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve,
Support.
supported by trustee Anderson. Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I indulge everyone's patience while obviously I'm dealing with a little bit of a cold up here, so I'm going to do my best. Proclamation number 2023-04, National Police Week, May 15th, 2023 through May 21st, 2023. On behalf of the people of the Charter Township of Chesterfield, Macomb County, State of Michigan, the Chesterfield Township Board of Trustees do hereby proclaim May 15th, 2023 through May 21st, 2023 National Police Week. Whereas in 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as National Police Officers' Day and the calendar week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. Established by a joint resolution of Congress in 1962, National Police Week pays special recognition to those law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty for the safety and protection of others. And whereas public safety officers of the Charter Township of Chesterfield stand watch over residents, selflessly risking their lives to protect individuals, families, neighborhoods, and property against crimes. And whereas Monday, May 15th, 2023 is observed nationally as Police Officers Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who through their courageous deeds have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in the performance of duty. And whereas the Charter Township of Chesterfield Department of Public Safety, past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered dedicated service to the community. Now therefore, the Chesterfield Township Board of Trustees do hereby proclaim May 15th, 2023 through May 21st, 2023 as National Police Week within the Charter Township of Chesterfield. Throughout Chesterfield Township, we urge and encourage all residents to take time to appreciate our public safety officers and honor all police officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty.
Thank you. Comments from the board? Comments from the public? Seeing no comments from the public, I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by trustee Anderson, to approve item 9D. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Aye. Trustee Demink. Aye. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 9E.
Item 9E is to adopt proclamation number 2023-05 to declare May 2023 as Mental Health Awareness Month in Chesterfield Township.
Move to approve.
Second.
Support by trustee Vosberg, supported by Clerk Berry. Clerk Berry, would you read the proclamation?
On behalf of the people of Charter Township of Chesterfield, Macomb County, State of Michigan, the Chesterfield Township Board of Trustees do hereby proclaim the month of May Mental Health Awareness Month. Whereas the area that someone lives in plays a significant role in their overall health and well-being, and whereas surroundings can impact if, how, and when a person's needs are met, which in turn affects mental health. And whereas having safe, stable, and healthy home conditions set the foundation for achieving and maintaining good mental health. And whereas with early and effective interventions, those individuals with mental health conditions can recover and lead full, productive lives. And whereas each business, school, government agency, healthcare provider, organization, and citizen share the burden of mental health problems and has a responsibility to promote mental wellness and support prevention efforts. Now therefore, the Chesterfield Township Board of Trustees do hereby proclaim May 2023 as Mental Health Awareness Month within the Charter Township of Chesterfield. We also call upon the citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools in Chesterfield Township to recommit our community to increasing awareness and understanding of mental health, the steps our citizens can take to protect their mental health, and the need for appropriate and accessible services for all people with mental health conditions.
Thank you. Comments from the board?
Supervisor.
Trustee Joseph.
I'm proud to support this agenda item. I am a big proponent in mental health awareness, and I must admit to you that I do support this with a bit of a heavy heart in terms of the hypocrisy that I think we unfortunately seem to have, we seem to be steeped in it as a board lately. For a better part of 2 months, I have, in my board comments and in emails, brought to the attention concerns about our own employees and mental health awareness with regard to our own employees. And so I've been told to stand down. I've shared my concerns, and as I look to the left, I articulated as best I could without violating somebody's right to HIPAA privacy and employee relations and so forth. But the stares I get back when I'm talking about somebody's mental health are the same kinds of stares that you might envision a monkey looking at fire for the first time. And it's deeply, deeply disturbing to me that we have individuals in this township who are hurting. They're hurting very badly. And so I say to those members who are hurting, and to the former police chief of Auburn Hills, the Mount Clemens Elk Lodge 2018 Officer of the Year. I support mental health, and I'm sorry if there is a belief of hypocrisy on the part of this board for the way that we actually deal with mental health, not the way that we take pictures with one another when we celebrate mental health awareness. So it is a very bittersweet endorsement of this proclamation, but I believe very strongly not only in the obligation for government agencies, public and private institutions, and most importantly, the organization that I sit on, this board, to recognize when we have people in our employ who are hurting, an obligation to go above and beyond. And I feel that we failed in that instance, and I offer my heartfelt apology in my support of this proclamation. Thank you.
Any further comments from the board? Comments from the public?
Mike Horton, 50393 Bauer. Someone who has worked in public health, public mental health, it's very important that we take care of those who are suffering. It is a very common thing in our society that is becoming more and more prevalent due to the way things keep on going in the way the world is and how we've been living in this country. Mental health awareness is very important, and I think everybody should re-examine how we have been doing things the past several decades, past few years. It is becoming more and more effective, especially in the post-pandemic era. Please look out for one another, and just everyone has a hard time, so please take care of each other. It's worthwhile. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public?
John Speaka, Chesterfield Township. I support the mental health proclamation. As a matter of fact, we need to stop looking at mental health as a taboo, and we need to help each other out. With the pandemic and everything that's happened in the last 2 years, it's evident that there's more mental health issues. Unfortunately, with mental health, people don't want to admit that there's an issue and try to, deny that there's an issue. But we need to help one another. We need to look out for our employees. Like Trustee Joseph said, I mean, we definitely have an issue here in the township, and we're obligated to look after each other and help our employees out. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public?
Joe Kadich, live on Sutton. I basically want to be a little more blunt than Trustee Joseph was. I've seen more things like this pass through this board, that they're aware of this, they authorize this, they support this, but there's no meat behind what you're signing. It's saying, I'm okay with this, but I don't think this township has any office or any way of putting the word out there or contacting people that need help. Apparently can't even do it with your own employees. We got 45,000 people out there, and all you put out is say, we support mental health. I'd like to see somebody come up with a plan and say, here's how we can do it. Send letters, say we're here to help, we can offer help, we can direct you. You know, send them out to the whole damn public if you have to. To me, that would be a lot better than signing something and say, I agree with this. It's the easiest thing to do. It's something, you know, I've seen the same thing with Veterans Day over the past years. Had the Marines build that memorial out there how many years ago? This Chesterfield always said, I support the armed services, I do this. I've never seen anybody here go to a memorial, or even if they have them anymore, out there. Never. But you've always got a proclamation, you've got something out back there reminding everybody what happened to those people. I'd like to see somebody put some works behind, you know, what you're writing so that people really know you really mean it.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments?
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. My name is Jeff Baker. I'm from Lake Orion. At public comment in a few minutes, I'm going to share a story with you about my son, who used to work for this police department.
Mr. Baker, can I interrupt you for just for a minute? Can we do this at the end? This is going to be germane to this topic here. I'll give you all the time at the end of the meeting at public comments.
Of course, I'm not going to get into the details right now. I just wanted to let you know this.
Yeah, this is just relative. If you want to address mental health, that's fine. Let's leave names out of it.
That's what I'm addressing. This is a mental health issue that took place in this township. I'm going to share that with you in a few minutes. But I think it's really conflicting to listen to a proclamation about mental health when my son went through mental health issues, and to listen to this board talk about mental health when he's hurting. I'm going to share that story with you in a few minutes of public comment. I just wanted to make sure everybody would stick around and listen to it. It's very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments?
I do.
Trustee Vosberg, I'll bring it back up.
Oh.
Mr. Rayner?
Mike Rayner, 26175 Jack Grove Lane. I wasn't prepared to speak on this, but this is such a serious problem in this country that this makes me a nervous wreck. You know, I get tired of, I'm like so many others that are dropping out of the news. And so many of these terrible events that are occurring are because of mental health issues. I remember when I was in college, psychology was one of my specialties there, and I went to Eloise. I remember going to Eloise and seeing how those various categories of mentally challenged folks were being treated. And now we have so few facilities, period. And we have all these terrible events take place, and we find out, well, yes, this person had mental health issues, which is often the explanation. But they continue, and they continue, and they continue. And like so many other things, we just talk about it. You know, we just, yes, we feel sorry, we cry, all those wonderful emotions. But isn't it time we did something? You know, all talk and no action, it really gets very discouraging to me. And I must say, there are a few things in the community, but as I sit there and think about the other issues that I want to address myself later, you know, I realize that they're so less important than the effect on so many of the vulnerable in our society today. And I don't know why it's happening, but we have to step up and do something about this. We can't tolerate this anymore. We have to take this personally. And I hope it happens, and I wish I could be more optimistic. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, Trustee Vosper.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'm kind of saddened by the tone that this proclamation is, the discussion is taken. My father was a psychiatric nurse, worked at a psychiatric hospital. That's all I knew as a child growing up was getting help for behavioral health, wherever it might be, if it was something you're born with or something that developed later on, always supporting of people who sought help for that, and also supportive of people who are trying to work their way through things. And also personally, our family has sought help. We don't always know what other people are doing to help others. And to hear sort of a negative tone really disheartens me, because I think there's a lot of people who do a lot of work to help. And there's family members here family members of the people sitting here who have sought and benefited from help, behavioral health, and mental health care. So I'm very proud of the fact that we have this on our agenda and that we're bringing this to light. That's not to say there aren't, everyone has a story positive and probably everyone has a story negative, but we have to keep awareness out there. Thank you.
Treasurer Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have to agree with Trustee Vosberg that it is very, very disappointing, the tone that this is taking. There's probably everybody in this room has a family member or a friend or a loved one who has suffered from mental health, because this country is in a mental health crisis. There's no doubt about it, for various reasons. COVID has wreaked havoc on kids. Children have lost years of schooling they'll never get back. Everybody in this room is old enough to say that they had a normal high school experience. They had 4 years or 3 years of a normal high school experience. There are the kids who are graduating today lost either the last years of their middle school, their very high school years. They'll never get those back. Once you're 18, you can never go back. You never get that back. To make assumptions that people don't have family members who have served in the armed forces and suffered from PTSD is a big assumption. Several board members, including myself, do have family members who have suffered from PTSD as well as gangrene because of their service in the armed forces, and so that is assumption that has been brought to this board by that same person over and over again, and I have personally said that's not true. And so when we make these blanket use statements about board members having certain feelings or certain thoughts, I think it's unfair to do that. Mental health is an important part. I know Trustee Vosberg served on the mental health board here for the county for many years and recruited people and has helped many people. This board has done things in the community. Part of that is due to COVID, doing things such as trying to open up parks and pathways and providing spaces for people to get out and get some fresh air and things like that. So everybody's saying, what can we do? And oftentimes we have to each examine ourselves and say, how am I contributing to the problem? How is each person contributing to the problem? What can I do different? And that's really where it all starts. And every day I wake up and I'm like, everybody's human, everybody's imperfect, and I just ask, today I want to do more good and make more positive in the community and hopefully make very few mistakes. every human being makes mistakes every day. Every human being makes errors. And we as a community and each individual person have to make a difference in where we're at. So I think I have a coffee cup that says, make a difference where you're planted. And that's it. Wherever you are, where each of us are, let's make a difference. If people want to get together and they have suggestions, please contact me, leave something with Karen, and we'll do our best to try to make a difference in the community. I had somebody in the community recently tell me, let's start something, and I know Mr. Rayners wanted to start some things, and we can do our best to try to work together as a community, and that's the way we make a difference. I hope we can have positive conversations about mental health and other community business as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. The comments from Trustee Joseph. Oh, go ahead, please.
Yeah, there's a list of things out there that pop up here that we sign these declarations for. You know, we acknowledge the monarch butterflies, sign Arbor Month, and a bunch of other things. If you watch these meetings, there'll be 2, 3 a month will come up here that we do. Put them in one of these cabinets out here. Aren't we good? I hear what you're saying out there. This is mental health. We're signing a resolution, some acknowledging it. Is this something else that just gets stuck in a cabinet? Aren't we good? Or what I hear is this board going to carry it a step further? Allegedly, there are provisions within township government to address this, but perhaps it's time we look further. What are we actually doing? Not just talking it up here and having these kind of heart-rending stories, but what is this board, to start with, going to do about that topic to improve what we have first for our residents, and then first actually for our employees, and then our residents? What are we going to do? Perhaps a committee should be formed. What are the options there? Anyhow, that's I'd like to see more than just sad stories and signing resolutions, and see something put in action. Thank you.
Clerk Bear.
Mr. Supervisor, I'm going to do my part in securing the mental health here, and I'm going to call the question, please. I'd like to make a motion to call the question.
Motion called, question. Clerk Berry, call the roll.
Trustee Vosberg. Aye. Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee DeBig. Aye. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 9F. I'm sorry. Clerk Berry. I have a motion by Trustee Vosberg, supported by Clerk Berry.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Point of information, are you calling this out of order? I don't know.
We went back to the original motion.
Yeah, I supported Trustee Vosberg's motion, so I'm not sure the order that the clerk is calling it in.
Yeah, what are we voting on?
Mental Health Awareness Proclamation.
Oh, okay.
Right.
We are voting on the proclamation. I have a motion by Trustee Vosberg, supported by Clerk Berry, to approve the proclamation as read. Clerk Berry.
That's not correct, Mr. Supervisor. I supported the motion. I supported the motion.
I had Clerk Berry. Clerk Berry.
It's fine. I'm glad she heard that.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee DeBig.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 9F.
Item 9F is to approve the purchase of 30 wireless access points in the amount of $20,354.64. This equipment will be used to replace aging units at the municipal, DPW, and community center buildings, as well as expand Wi-Fi signal coverage in areas of each building that need improvement, and add outdoor Wi-Fi connectivity at Brandenburg and Pollard Parks.
Do I have a motion to approve? Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Supported by, was that you,
David.
Treasurer Elliott?
What was it?
I'll cover this one. This is an ongoing this is an ongoing IT infrastructure upgrade that we've been working on here. Our current wireless Wi-Fi access points are outdated. We're trying to integrate them into other parts of the township and also expand the connectivity. So this is a capital improvement. It was approved in the budget. There was a place for it. Bringing it to the board to seek approval to move forward with it. Any questions from the board? Comments from the public?
I just have a question. You said the funding was paid for by, because these motions to approve spending don't have general ledger numbers on them. And usually the CPIs in the budget, they don't have funding in the revenue from the budget. So.
I'm not sure what your question is.
Well,
It's in the budget. It was in the capital plan purchase for this year. This is a
but if it's in
request
the-
to move
it's in the
forward
ca-
with it.
If you take the money that's in the capital plan and you put it in the budget for that department, what it does is it puts that department in a further deficit because the funding's not there, unless you plan on using ARPA funds or something like that. But the funding's not in the budget. It's a CPI that's approved, but the funding's not in the revenue coming in this year in the budget.
I'm not sure if you understand the budget, but it is in the capital plan. It is in the budget process for this year. It's a general fund expense.
If there was a general ledger number, I would understand it, but there's no general ledger number.
Okay, thank you, sir.
John Speaka, Chesterfield Township. The question is, what funds are you using for this? I think you're misunderstanding Mr. LaFata. Mr. LaFata says there's no general number for this to be assigned, so where's the money coming from? And if it is coming from, I know it's in the budget, but that means we're adding more of a deficit to the budget. He's just asking for clarity on that, and I think you know what he's asking, but you're not answering the question. Thank you.
Further comments from the public?
Hello, Janice Young, 28714 Yorkshire. I'm okay with all the Wi-Fi stuff, but the part about adding outdoor Wi-Fi connectivity to our parks, I'm not sure I understand what that would actually be used for. Because when I think about going to a park, I think about getting fresh air, sunshine. Trustee Elliott mentioned that, you know, people watching, dog watching. I think about unplugging, not looking at a Wi-Fi device in a park. So I don't know if that's the intention for that. You know, we should be encouraging families to spend time together in the parks, not using Wi-Fi for free, if that's the intent. But thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further comments from the public? Bring it back to the board. Trustee Anderson.
Hey, thank you. Just one observation here. I'll support this, but I do believe former trustee LaFata understands the budget thoroughly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Treasurer Elliott, to approve item. Treasurer Elliott.
Thank you. It is my understanding that oftentimes when you are at the parks, especially Brandenburg Park, you can't get reception. And so if there was an emergency there, you wouldn't be able to make a phone call, say at some of the parks. So it's a lot of times it's safety issues, to answer that question. Okay.
Thank you. I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Treasurer Elliott, to approve item 9F. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee DeBig.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 9G.
Item 9G is to approve a recommendation for Chesterfield to participate in the Macomb County Drain Maintenance Program in the amount of $25,000.
Do I have a motion to approve? Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve,
Support.
supported by Treasurer Elliott. Mr. O'Connor?
Good evening. This proposed project is to participate with the county drain office in the spot cleaning of 3 county drains, the west branch of the Fish Creek, the Pitts Drain, and the Deer Creek. Our contribution would be $25,000, and then the county would make up the difference of $41,000 for an estimated project cost of $66,000. There are funds budgeted. I know it doesn't say that on the agenda item, but there is the annual watershed program, which has $30,000 budgeted, and the GL number is 101-446-939.000. And that is the same GL number we used last year for a similar project. It was a smaller scale. Our contribution was only $4,000, but that is the same GL number we used last year.
Thank you, sir. Questions from the board? Comments from the public?
I have some facts and I have questions, but when Ascension was going to process their own wastewater, they were going to dump it into a tributary. All tributaries that collect stormwater runoff in Macomb County is the responsibility of the Macomb County Drain Commission, not Chesterfield Township. Residents pay an operating millage of 4.32 mils for counter operating to the county. And an average value of the home, that's about $450 per home. And what I don't understand is the county's really responsible for that. It was dictated in the Ascension when they were going to put the storm or the processed water, that those tributaries were the responsibility of the county. I don't know why Chesterfield, I mean, we pay the county for operating, we pay the county for other things, and I'm not understanding why we should be partnering with them. It doesn't make sense. It's not like the township's got a lot of money and the residents are rich. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public? Bring it back up to the board. I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Treasurer Elliott, to approve 9G. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Berry. Aye.
Item 9H.
Item 9H is to discuss proposed rehabilitation of 23 Mile Road from west of Fairchild Road to the railroad tracks.
I put this on here. This is an ongoing discussion and debate when we've created the budgets for the last 2 years. And it's always an issue, has been stated. They're not our roads. We don't pay for them. And unfortunately, in order to get anything done, as you all know, whenever they come to reconstruct an intersection, there's a community portion. And this specific project is directly to 23 Mile Road. This project was entered into in 2019, I believe, for the TIP program, for a complete rebuild of 23 Mile Road from Gratiot to Chesterfield Road. And as I sent out to you, I believe it was April 3rd, your emails, we suddenly had a request from the Macomb County Road Commission, Department of Roads, that project has been expanded. Not only from 23 to Chesterfield Road, but they've expanded a complete rebuild to Chesterfield Road to Fairchild. 5 lanes, curbs, gutter, tear down. And the shared cost is now in excess of little over $1 million for our community portion for that project. So this was, I sent you the email asking kind of for direction, how you wanted to approach this. It is not within our capital budget. It's not something we planned for originally. It's not something that anybody was aware of, that they were going to expand the project. I did talk to them. It was, when I say them, the Department of Roads, the project was expanded basically because 23 Mile Road's been completely rebuilt, or will be rebuilt, from Gratiot all the way through to Van Dyke and Shelby Township. So this was the last section. They said while everything is mobilized, they'd just like to complete it and get the project all done in one time frame instead of having to come back. So they moved this project up on their behalf. And again, I didn't get into intimate details as to why and how, but the request is our community funding portion is substantial. So what I'm looking for tonight is there are a couple of programs that they offer for communities to finance them through the state, or we could fund it. We have the ability to fund it strictly out of our general fund for the next year. There is going to have to be a commitment relatively soon. And whatever direction you want to go tonight in discussions is, I've got to get back to them probably by the end of this week to let them know what direction we're going in. So without arbitrarily telling them to move forward, I wanted to bring it to the board for just a discussion piece. I will ask them for what our portion share is going to be. It is going to be substantial. And again, the reason that this is coming now is they want to complete the project all within next year. So that being said, Mitch, you had a little bit further discussions with them. Did I miss anything?
No, you got it. This map is a little odd, but that's 23 Mile Road, and the red is the TIP-funded project, which the feds are going to pay 80%, the county pays 10%, and we pay 10%. And that was budgeted, the design was budgeted this year in our budget, and the construction was next year. And you're right, the county approached us in April, heading west through Macomb Township. That will be entirely improved, and it leaves this gap, which is represented by the blue on this map. And I'm sure we've all driven this particular stretch of road, and it's bad, but it's not that bad. So you're right, we want to bring it to the board for a full discussion in some kind of direction.
Well, that being said, I'll offer any board comments, or I'll entertain any board comments.
So we're already, when was that, last year, 2 years ago, we did from Gratiot to the tracks.
Yes,
Right.
our portion was 250, and
Okay.
it was just a simple grind and resurface.
Right, because we all
And
knew that was
it was-
terrible. I mean, that was
correct.
pothole city.
We knew at the time that this was in the TIP program, and it was, a total rebuild was coming. So that's the portion in front of Myers. What we're now talking about is they expanded it, going all the way west to the township board.
Going to the township board. I mean, we know it's got to get done sooner or later. It got moved up. We just got to figure out how we're going to finance it. Do we bond it? Do we?
All of those options we've had preliminary discussions with. They're all within our means. A general fund expense is within our means. It's just a matter of seeing what direction you want to go. Trustee Vosper.
Is there any reason, is this in the TIP, but they want to move faster than the TIP?
This was.
And by TIP, I mean the transport.
Mitch, you're the engineer.
This blue stretch of road is not in the TIP.
It's not, is it in, like the 2030 plan or 2040 or anything?
It's not.
in any plan?
The county, recognized they did everything through Macomb Township, and they're jumping, I don't know what that is, 3/4 of a mile, and doing that stretch of road as a TIP. And their plan is, while they're mobilized and while they're out there, they're going to bid this blue work also with it. So it wasn't planned in the TIP. And Trustee Domink is right. I think it was 2 years ago, we did contribute 50/50 on the red section to mill out 2 inches and cap 2 inches.
Right. Okay, I'm not in favor. It's just way too much money. I think that they can put that in the TIP, and maybe it'll have to wait a few years, but I'm not in favor of that. We do not get county down. That's a lot of money for a township to pay to not receive road funding. Thank you.
Understood. Trustee Anderson.
Mr. Vosberg, one of the times I agree with you. It was a big hunk of money, kind of a crapshoot whether or not we can get grants to cover it or not, to commit our township to this type of money when we don't have the funds to execute it. I believe we should pass it this time. Again, thank you.
Trustee Joseph?
Yeah, I was on strict instructions to be nice tonight. This is an area that I think I can be nice. And I'll just say this. When it comes to the county and the partnership here, I think that we should adopt a just the tip policy. That's where we need to be.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, again, I'm not going to ask for a specific action. I think I got pretty much the direction that the board wants to go, and I'll relay that to the Department of Roads and have Mitch do it also. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Item 9I has been removed. Item 10, there are no addendums. Item 10, there are no addendums. Item 11 is public comments. There is a 5-minute time limit on public comments. You have public comment starts now. You got 5 minutes. There's no 9I. It's been removed. It's been.
There was no motion. No motion was taken.
Stop obstructing the meeting. Keep your comments to yourself. If you have something to say, go to the podium.
I wanted to address the 23 mile. I didn't get a chance.
There's no action. We're moving to public comments.
It's
Public
an-
comments
it's-
is
it wasn't
open.
a-
You
it
have
was-
the ability to
It was
speak.
an agenda item.
There's no action on it. It was a discussion. You have the ability to speak now, please.
Mr. Supervisor,
you know-
point of
you know,
order?
Please.
So the miscarriage here is that there was supposed to be no discussion from the board. I think if we have an agenda item that says we're going to open it for discussion and a motion, then we have something to discuss. So we kind of bypass that part, which I'm okay with because it was just an open discussion. But I think in terms of conducting a meeting, I'd prefer that it come from the chair. And several times tonight, I heard the author of the stricken amendment, which was the APO, shouting with no recognition from the chair. And I would like you to admonish Trustee Vosberg for her perpetual breaking of the board rules. Allow the chair to recognize, and my point of order is that you simply take control of the meeting and you don't need to co-chair the meeting with Trustee Vosberg. I know that she's very diligent in her application of the rules. She's completely out of the line again. Thank you.
I'm not even going to address that.
She's shouting at you. Mr. Supervisor, I asked for recognition by the chair.
Thank you. Item 11, public comments. There is a 5-minute time limit. If you would state your name.
Hello, my name is Christine Denduven. I live at 52057 Pebble Creek Road. I'm a previous employee, and I would like to address the board and the residents. I would like to address the Chesterfield Township Board this evening regarding dues for the AFSCME Council 25 that were taken out of my payroll checks for the amount of $309.05 over a period of 7 months, at a deduction of $44.15 each time. It is my understanding from speaking with several representatives at AFSCME, the dues should have not been taken from me until the probationary period was over. My probationary period was to end on 12/13/2022. However, Steve Duchesne did not approve my 6-month probationary period. I was given no reason for that. My managers, Mitch O'Connor and Paul Cosierra, were very supportive of me. They removed me from probation on January 19th, 2023. I have the documents with me and submitted new paperwork to Steve Duchesne. At that time, we did not receive any additional information from Steve Duchesne via email, phone, written documentation of any type, and we were under the assessment that I was off of probation. I even joined Human Resources Committee for the Wellness Committee. On March 8th, I was called into Mitch and Paul's office, and I was terminated from the township as a result of Steve Duchesne giving them a letter. There was no Human Resources representative present at that time, and allegedly the reason was told that a couple people didn't like working with me here in the township. You want to go to Mental Illness Month? That's a whole nother subject on what that did to me. We had no prior knowledge of this taking place, and I have tried contacting AFSCME. AFSCME has no record of my money being taken out. I was told by Human Resources that it's up to me to fight for my $309. Well, that money was taken out illegally, in my opinion. There was no reason. If I didn't pass my probationary period, why were you taking my money? And now I have to fight for this money to get it back? And then another part of contention is I had 6 days of PTO left, and I was told, per the union contract, I'm not eligible for that. Well, if I didn't pass my probationary period, why am I under a union contract? There's a lot of things that are wrong with your Human Resources Department, and I'm glad I'm not part of the township anymore. And I am asking today that I receive my money immediately, and I will be here tomorrow to get my $309. In addition, mental health. How would you like if I walked into one of your offices and said, sorry, a couple people don't like you, we're terminating you? I had very good reviews. I had a good rapport with my immediate managers. There was never any complaints, and I was bullied by other employees. I think it was July 27th or 29th last year, and Steve Duchesne didn't do anything to me. So going back to mental health for your employees, how do you think I felt having to come to work every day and give my 110% and move past that? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Again, my name's Jeff Baker. Good evening, Board. I'm here tonight to bring to your attention, your police department and your administration. You have a serious problem. You may have recently heard of an officer that suffers from PTSD, although I expect you have very few details, as those in charge are hiding behind HIPAA and employee confidentiality to cover the incredible incompetence of those in charge. That suffering officer is my son, Joshua Baker. I'm here tonight not only as a father, but a former police chief of 30 years of law enforcement experience. As a father, I'm angry as hell at how my son was treated by this township. As a former police chief, I'm disgusted and appalled at how poorly this was handled. Here's the details that you don't have. On September 30th, Josh responded to a serious injury accident in New Baltimore. He was just a few blocks away. Upon arrival, he found a little girl who had been hit by a truck, pulled her out from underneath, and realized she was severely hurt. Since the ambulance was not close, Josh, along with the New Baltimore police officer, felt compelled to drive towards the ambulance to save valuable time in an attempt to save her life. Josh rode in the back seat, holding in his arms this precious, bloodied little girl who could not stay conscious and had agonal breathing. The child was turned over to MedStar when they met en route. That evening, Josh received a voicemail from the chief of police of this township saying the little girl was in critical but stable condition and in a medical coma. He also told Josh that he was 100% made the right call to put her in the car and go. I have the recording of that call if you'd like to hear it tonight. Unfortunately, Josh was deeply traumatized by the experience of holding this little girl in his arms that he thought was dying, a girl about the same age as his twin nieces. Her blood was all over his uniform. At first, he talked about the call a lot with us. Then we noticed behavior started to change, and over the course of the following months, his ability to cope declined. To make matters worse, even though the chief told him that he had 100% made the right call, Josh was issued a written reprimand 82 days later for policy violations, leaving jurisdiction without permission and transporting an injured person. Josh continued to struggle, and our family was concerned about his mental well-being. We tried to get him to talk with a professional, but he wouldn't go. On March 2nd, Josh finally contacted his sergeant prior to his shift and told him he needed help. He was crying and said he was broken, he wasn't eating, he wasn't sleeping, and he couldn't find his way out of this dark pit. Josh had lost about 60 pounds, and my kid's fit as hell, and he lost 60 pounds. And he had used almost all of his personal and sick time at work, obvious signs he was struggling with something. He told his sergeant that he had been up for days and had tried different substances to help him sleep, including melatonin and THC gummies, but nothing helped him. When I learned that Josh made this call, I contacted the chief myself the same day to ensure the department was aware of our concerns in the event that Josh did not convey all the issues he was experiencing. I knew this was our chance to get him some help. I was assured of confidentiality as I knew that if Josh found out I called, he'd be upset with me and would cause him further distress. Much to my disappointment, Josh called me within an hour telling me he had heard about my call to this police department. The chief informed me he had talked to Josh on a couple occasions in his office in which Josh broke down. He said he'd seen a difference in him but couldn't put a finger on what was wrong. Your chief assured me, man to man, father to father, that he would see to it that Josh got the help he needed. The plan was to have Josh come to work the following day when his coworker friends and the chief himself would talk with him and take him to a professional that day. However, something or someone changed those plans prior to Josh coming in. Instead, he showed up to a drug test and was sent home with a fitness for duty test on Monday. He tested positive for the THC that he had divulged the day prior. On Monday, the psychologist diagnosed Josh with PTSD as a result of the call of that little girl. He scheduled follow-up appointments for more therapy, but Chesterfield refused to call the doctor back to authorize. Instead, another investigation ensued, and Josh never saw that doctor again. He was stripped of his access to the department, escorted in and out of the building, and interviewed in the department's criminal interrogation room. As you know by now, instead of Josh getting the help he needed, the department turned their backs on him and fired him for the THC use. Your administration justified this action by documenting his behaviors the day after we called. This is their documentation: excessive time off, mood swings, argumentative, emotional, irrational, anger, extreme weight loss, paranoid, impulsive, and the September 30th incident with that little girl. That was their cause for fitness for duty. Obviously, the indications of a mental health issue. And not one person in Chesterfield's administration helped him, even after he asked for help, and I called asking for the same. Here's a few things you need to know about Josh. He was MCOL's outstanding officer or recruit in the academy. He was Officer of the Year in 2018. He was the department's use of force instructor. He received a life-saving award and a Valor Award. He received the Chief's Coin of Excellence. He taught at the Citizens Police Academy and the Junior Academy. 2 weeks ago, while your township supervisor vacationed in Florida, a letter signed by him was couriered to my son terminating his employment. I ask all of you that are parents to imagine this happening to your son or daughter. It is completely unacceptable that this department has no clue how to recognize mental health issues of their own officers and doesn't support them when they ask for help. Are they incompetent or discriminating against mental illness? And if they can't help with one of their own, how in the world can you help with citizens in this state, or in this township? I understand I'm out of time. I'll be back in 2 weeks to finish what I have to say. Thank you.
Mr. Supervisor?
Can I do that?
Mr. Supervisor, point of order. I'd like to make a motion to continue the suspend the board rules and allow Mr. Baker to finish as he was promised when he got up to speak during the Mental Health Proclamation Award. He was told he would be given time at the end. He reserved his comments while other board members were allowed to go off topic and talk about coffee cups and fresh air. He sat down and patiently waited. I would ask that we suspend.
Is there a motion to approve the extended time?
Support.
I'll support it.
Motion by trustee Joe, supported by trustee Anderson to extend the time.
Thank you. It'll only take a couple more minutes, I promise. I won't take up any more of your time. 2 more minutes. I'll repeat that last line as I was interrupted. If you can't help one of your own, how can you?
Hold on.
We have to take a vote.
We have to take a vote.
Sorry.
Clerk Barry, would you call the roll?
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott. Or Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Demink. Trustee Vosberg. Supervisor Kersten. Clerk Berry, aye.
Thank you very much, Board. I really appreciate that. I'll repeat that last line. If we can't help with one of our own, how can this police department be trusted to help the citizens of Chesterfield? I was a police chief. If you can't help your own, how can you help the citizens? I ask each one of you as the board member to get involved in this termination. Ask questions. Don't settle for excuses. Do the right thing. You can contact me personally. I'll give you every one of you my cell phone number to contact me. And I will provide documentations and details of anything that you have a question of. Meet with Josh, talk to him. He'll meet with you one-on-one or as a group. Hear his story. Lastly, and I want to say this as clear as I possibly can, to the men and women of the Chesterfield Police Department, I'm certain morale is in the tank. I'm certain that after seeing what happened to my son Josh, they will never come forward. You guys just had a little girl that was hit like 2 weeks ago. They will never come forward with this administration in place pertaining to their own mental health. So God forbid they ever have something similar happen to them. I will say this publicly. If anybody in Chesterfield needs some help, reach out to me. I will help find them some help until this administration is removed. Thank you. Thank you for the extension, Board. I appreciate it.
My name is Michelle Baker, and I am here today not only as Josh's stepmother, but as a mental health professional. I have a master's degree and 30 years of experience working in the mental health field, most recently as an executive director of behavioral health within the Henry Ford Health System. As a mother, I am outraged at your police department's failure to help my son with mental health issues, which are a result of trauma experienced on the job, by the way. Not only did you not help him, but you made it worse by the way that you treated him throughout this process. As a mental health professional, I am embarrassed for your department and have significant concerns regarding apparent lack of training or knowledge pertaining to mental health issues and police officers. That and an apparent lack of concern for the overall well-being of your officers. You see, it is your job, Chief, to take care of your officers so that they can take care of the citizens of Chesterfield. Did you know that recent studies indicate that law enforcement officers have a 54% increase in suicide risk compared to civilians? In fact, data from the U.S. Department of Justice suggests that officers killed by suicide surpass deaths caused by both accidental and felonious events. Here are some additional statistics. 20 to 30% of police officers have substance use disorders. For the general population, that rate is 10%. The divorce rate for police officers is 70%, compared to 50% for the general population. 24% of people with mental health issues self-medicate with alcohol or drugs. A recent study showed that 47% of police officers tested screened positive for PTSD, which is 9 to 10 times greater than the general population. Although alarming, this data isn't surprising, is it? It makes sense that police officers have an increased exposure to traumatic events at work, which in turn increases their risk of PTSD, addiction, divorce, and suicide. What doesn't make sense is that in light of this data, there are departments such as Chesterfield that are not effectively identifying officers suffering with PTSD, nor are they offering help to those who actually come forward and ask for it. My son's situation is a no-brainer. Consistent with the data supports. He experienced trauma while at work, was unable to cope, and was eventually diagnosed with PTSD. He was mentally tortured, not eating, not sleeping, desperate for relief. He eventually reached out to his supervisor asking for help. He divulged at that time that he had used THC gummies in an effort to sleep because he had been awake for days. Instead of offering support and giving him the help that he needed and asked for, he was fired. Police officers spend the entirety of their careers protecting and helping others, but where is their help? At this time, I implore each of you to do whatever is in your power to help remove the stigma of mental health and police officers, to improve communication and increase services available to them. And allowing those who are barriers to this to remain in positions of power is simply unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public?
I initially came here to talk about the item that was taken off the list tonight, where basically you were trying to turn down and basically turn out everybody that has somebody to say. You were taking the right of citizens to address this board from 3 minutes on an agenda item, which is really nothing, to 3 minutes for all the agenda items, and then reducing the time to talk at the end to 3 minutes. Total of 6 minutes to talk at everything over the whole board. That didn't happen. I hope you realize what's going on. And I also would, during this presentation, listening to these people, it brings to mind that, what was it, about 2 meetings ago, when Trustee Joseph brought up to the fact that the morale was low in this township. He didn't say anything about the police department, but basically in the employees in his township, and people were leaving and getting fired, and he wanted basically to those people, before they got fired, to come before the board and have the board review what was going on. That was dismissed out of hand. You apparently were on the right track. Too late for some of these people. You've done a terrible job here. You've turned on basically what Accavetti started, was try and take all communication from the public back to you, and you don't want to do that. I think the next thing will probably come up, you just say, stay home, we're not going to listen to you anyway. Am I right? You don't want to comment on that. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public?
John Speaka, 53978 Connor Drive. Mr. and Mrs. Baker, I apologize for what the supervisor put you through in this township and what your son's gone through in this township. So I feel your sympathy. I understand there's family members that I've had with mental health issues, and I understand, and I apologize for what you're going through. To the supervisor, I'm asking for your letter of resignation effective tomorrow. So after what I heard tonight, you're unfit to sit in that seat, no doubt. So I'm asking you to resign and do the right thing. In regards to, how do you fire somebody when you're on vacation? You cancel a board meeting, you're on vacation because you don't want somebody sitting in your seat, so we cancel the meeting, and we fire somebody in this township that needs help, one of our own. If one thing that you should know about me when it comes to public safety and our police department and our officers, nothing infuriates me more than what I just heard tonight. My wife, before I came here tonight, told me to be calm and cool and be nice. But after hearing that story, no, there is no nice. You need to resign and do the right thing. And we'll put somebody in that seat that can handle and take care of the situation. We'll make sure we'll rectify it for the officer that was fired and the family. Mr. LaFata, there was a comment made that Mr. LaFata doesn't understand the budget. Let me tell you something about Mr. LaFata. Mr. LaFata understands the budget more than anybody sitting on this board. I'll put Mr. LaFata to anybody on this board, so he understands the budget. He's quite capable. He was our previous treasurer. When Mr. LaFata was in the treasurer's office, we didn't have bounced checks. We didn't have issues in the treasurer's office. He reported the work daily from 8 to 4:30. He was there every day, Monday through Friday. He took an hour for lunch. And you knew he'd be back in 59 minutes, even though he had 60 minutes for lunch. Now in the treasurer's office, we're dealing with bounced checks, and it is a complete nightmare. And if the treasurer would spend more time in her office instead of in Florida, maybe we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. So the job is an 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday job. It's not whenever you feel like coming in type of job. But I understand that, you know, I've got 3 elected officials and they report to the residents. Well, the residents have an obligation to do their due diligence and know their candidates before they vote for them. So nobody should be voting for a candidate along party lines. You should be voting for candidates based on qualifications and skill sets. Who can sit up there and get the job done and make sure that the residents are represented? Because when they're wasting your money, as you've seen tonight, it's a continuous waste, a pandemic. That's less money that the residents have that we can do to improve our community and to keep our community safe. So we need to make sure that we vote for the right candidate and not along party lines. It was said, again, going back to Miss Elliott, you know, this was said at the last board meeting. The way things went, they spun out of control. And it's been said before that, you know, you take things and twist them and you take them out of context and you're looking for sympathy. So enough of that. Let's quit playing the sympathy card. Paul LaFata said it best: know your candidates before the residents vote, because the employees will suffer and the residents will suffer. Kathy Vosberg, I was disappointed when I was at the podium at the last board meeting, and you just stormed out. You wanted to shut me down at this podium. This is the people's podium. This is not your podium, it's the people's podium. I don't always agree with what you have to say, but I listen to you. I give you the respect to listen to you. I don't step out of this room and walk out and not listen to you. That was totally uncalled for. And then to have a human resource director, Steve Duchesne, verbally attack one of our residents, I'm not going to stand for that either. An 80-year-old man, what right does he have to threaten an 80-year-old man in a parking lot and wanting to fight him? That was totally wrong, and you should fire him for that.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the public?
Paul LaFata, 48055 Mallard. In reference to the dog park, I'm not against the dog park in Chesterfield Township. What I don't understand is somebody used the term underutilized. Well, utilization is a science, it's a calculation. And there's population of the township's 45,345. There's 17,000 households. And Clerk Barry told me that there's 35,000 registered voters. That means we have people over 18. So this survey that's happening, if by statistical control analysis, if you don't have at least 1,000 comments, you'll be 95% accurate for what the township wants. So if you only wind up with maybe 100 or 200, you're going to be about 5% accurate. And it's not so much with the dog park itself. It's the dog park takes care in operations. There needs to be rules and regulations. People can get hurt. It's happened. The other thing is why does it have to be the ball diamonds? After work, I'd go out there and watch the Little Tights play. It's probably better than watching the Detroit Tigers. But I don't understand why we have to demo the dog park. We got fields, all kinds of fields out there. Just because somebody doesn't want to, fix them. If you want to look at utilization, I went back and checked, and boat launch history based on the cost of a car and a trailer to launch a boat, we only had 1,200 people utilize the boat, but we dumped $700,000 in it. Underutilized, but we dumped $700,000 in it. Little kids, they can't use the ballparks at Pollard Park. They're not set up for them. I don't know why. We got all that out there because we don't want to maintain it. I'm not understanding. The other thing is if it's not science, In other words, I think we got with this parks and pathways the same way we're getting with the dog park. If it's not science and it's not mathematical, if it's not science, it winds up being propaganda. Because if you can't prove it scientifically, it's propaganda. And we're getting a lot of propaganda. Because I'm not understanding how we spent $300 and some odd thousand on BS&A software. Over a year has passed, and we can have failures because we don't know what we're putting in the bill run on how much money we're spending. There's something wrong. There's something wrong. Either our employees aren't trained, or we're just not using it, or something. We're circumventing the process, but that's a management issue. You ask for $300 and some thousand, those checks and balances are important. This township's hemorrhaging financially, and I don't care what you say, just look at the budget. Because if you got to start taking the ARPA funds to plug the holes in your CPIs, then you're stealing from the residents. Thank you.
Janice Young, 28714 Yorkshire Drive. I gave some documents for the board to take a look at on the dog park. I was quoted in the Voice as saying that as long as the dog park doesn't cost the residents any money, that I would be for it. But since writing that on the Facebook post, I've done some research and I've come to the determination that I can't support the dog park of any kind for the township. I provided you with a copy of an article written by the Association of the Professional Dog Trainers, and it outlines pros and cons of dog parks for the dogs, the people, and the community. It's not as simple as putting up a fence and calling it a dog park. Dog parks bring a lot of responsibility and a lot of liability. Michelle Vanderson, I just gave her a copy of that same article. She had mentioned at the April 11th meeting that the dog park would take place of the current youth baseball diamonds, and that, I quote, "They don't have the ability to maintain them the way they should be maintained to properly use them," end quote. If that department can't maintain a baseball diamond, how can it possibly maintain a dog park? She went on to say that it would be a fenced area, not the Taj Mahal of dog parks, small, flat area, a couple of benches. And based on the article I shared with you, that is the worst environment for a dog park. She goes on to mention needing additional funding in the future via grants or budgets, which indicates that the residents may in fact be paying for this dog park for years to come. And she did say tonight there's been only about 80 responses, and I didn't realize there was 45,000 residents. So 80 responses doesn't really warrant a dog park in my mind. And Mr. Supervisor, you had mentioned to me at a previous meeting that Brandenburg Park has been operating at a deficit for a long time. Maybe the Parks and Rec Department can find a way to fix that rather than finding a way to spend funds on something else that really isn't needed or wanted by the majority of the residents. So on that note, I'd like to go back to the Wi-Fi. Trustee Treasurer Elliott, sorry. I don't think phones need Wi-Fi to make phone calls, so I don't know that that was really an adequate response to why we need Wi-Fi at a park when people should be enjoying the sunshine. As far as the item that was removed, 9I, I was not at the April 11th meeting. I did watch the video of it. It was pretty ugly, embarrassing, and shocking. So I understand that there's a movement to maybe limit the comments to the public, and I am new to this. When I, I'm familiar with the topic, I often use the phrase, it's not my first rodeo. Well, this is my first rodeo. So I'm learning how this all works and how it all goes, but I certainly don't want my time to be limited. And I don't think it's fair for the other residents to be limited either. So thank you.
Thank you. Further comments from the public?
Mike Rayner, 26175 Jack Grove Lane, and I think I'm going to throw away my notes. Except I'm going to cover one item, and I would like to be shut off at 3 minutes, and I would like to ask someone to speak to the one issue I'm going to address so that I do get some feedback from the board. I'm regrouping because my grandson is a EMT. He tells me about the 9-year-old girl who we took down from her bedroom when she hung herself. The little boy who was in the pond that he retrieved. One story after another, after another, after another, after another. 24-hour shifts, $16.50 an hour. And this is the way we handle our first responders. But my main objective here is the way we talk at each other. You know, it's been so long now since we talk to each other. You know, we just talk at each other now in this all about me society we're living in. You know, there's no sitting down and just talking about things. Even in the government, you know, from the school boards right up to the ridiculous federal government we have. In the old days, in the federal government or anywhere, you go out and you have a drink or something to eat, and you would exchange what I need on this legislation, what you need. We work it out, we compromise, we sign the bill, we carry on. Now we're like MMA fighters, you know, we're each in our own corner, ready to beat the dickens out of the other guy. There is no compromise, there is no draw. It's either my way or no way. And so that's why we're at a complete standstill. I mean, what's going to happen to our economy in the next couple of days? I mean, I really can't believe it. I've been around too long to have seen how things work. And it's so distressing. So I just want to cover one other thing, and that's jobs. You know, I'm in the bus business, so to speak, right? So we have a lot of jobs out there. Everywhere you go, you see for hire, for hire, for hire, for hire, right? So these are not $50,000 a year jobs. These are those wonderful $11, $12, $13, $14, $15 an hour jobs, right? So now, if you're going to be interested in one of those jobs, are you going to arrive in your SUV so that you can make that $12? No, because you can't afford it. If you're making that sort of ridiculous wage, then you're going to be taking a bus. Now, do we have bus service on 23 Mile Road for all of these small businesses that have for hire signs out here? No, we don't have a bus line there. No, we don't have one. Do we have one on Hall Road? No, we don't have one there either. So I think I'm representing the businessmen and women who can't fill their positions. And more importantly for me, I'm representing those men and women who really need those jobs, even though they don't pay much, but that's, for whatever reason, that's the best they can do. But you know, they can't get a bus to get them there. So I mean, I think that's absolutely ridiculous, and I would like somebody to express an opinion about how important it is or is not to provide jobs for these businesses and to provide to provide jobs for those that are looking for work. I mean, I'm on the bus circuit there, and I mean, I listen to these stories and I see the situations, and it's very distressing to me. And I'm trying my best to help things improve, and I would like to see a little more input from the board. And it would be nice to be able to sit down sometime and just kind of chat about things, you know? But this 5 minutes is, I think my 3 minutes is up, so can I have somebody respond to my concern for jobs from both an employer and potential employee point of view?
We'll address them in board comments when it's done.
Well, do I have any more time then?
You have 30 seconds left.
Well, really, the other thing, again, is the appearance of the community. I was condemned for having these makeshift shelters that provided protection from, you know, the elements, and 95% thought it was a great idea, and 5% didn't, and so they said, hey, Mike, you got to take those down. You know, they're not, you know, we're not paying taxes on them, so we have to get rid of them. So, so they went to the junkyard, and so people just stand out there in the rain or in the
Got to cut you off, Mr. Rayner. Thank you.
All right,
Appreciate
thank you
it.
very much. You bet.
Further comments?
Mike Orton, 50393 Bauer. So looking out tonight, you guys just got to hold the lines then. You had all these people commenting on important issues. Every single person had a reason to speak tonight. They didn't just come up here to blow off steam. No, and this wasn't something that they could just say in 3 minutes, as we proved here tonight. We were on the verge of having more dissension be essentially quashed within our township debate. Simply for what? People wanting to speak on issues that this is the only place that they can do so. They do not have an elected title of official capacity to speak on any issue that they feel like. This, once every 2 weeks, which was denied 2 weeks ago, is the only place that they can have that. Now, hearing some of the stories tonight, from multiple people, this really does come into place of what this township is for a place to work. And as a person who was an employee of this township, I also have my horror stories as well. First things first, and I need to stress this, for the proud employees who work for the fire department, they are exceptional people, dedicated public servants, and very good individuals who I had the pleasure of working with. But this township does not support its fire department in the greatest capacities. Clerk Barry, when you swore me in July 2019, my employee number was number 267. When I left the department at the end of 2021, we were in the 300s for employee identification numbers. We were told for several years that the township was going to provide the support for suppression and firefighting capacities through the help of part-time employees. When I left, there were less than a dozen. Where did 20-plus firefighters go? I'll tell you where they went. They went to other departments within the county or elsewhere because they were giving out better jobs with benefits and not just simply doing a tough job for $18.60 an hour. When I was on my final shift, it was me and an officer running calls. There were 5 firefighters on duty at night in a township of 46,000 people with industrial businesses, a waterfront, train tracks, freeway, and you're down to 4 or 5 guys at night protecting you. And I was just a part-timer, having to be a driver and an engineer. That's not how any reputable fire department works, in the slightest. We have a retention issue. We have an issue in attracting the proper talent to this township. So, Treasurer Elliott, when we talked afterwards of the meeting, the last time we had met, you said that we were financially successful in this township. So then I'm going to ask this proposal for this township then. Instead of wasting considerable resources and trying to retain part-time employees who only last here for a few weeks or months before moving on to better employment opportunities, why not make that proper investment in full-time firefighters? Expand the fire department, because we are far behind what we should be. We are at the same level we were when the department got full-time firefighters back in 2001. And it grew up until 2008. When the recession happened, we cut down full-time firefighters, and now we are back to 18 for suppression. I'm not talking about administrative personnel. I'm talking about just suppression. If you do not make the proper advancements, you're allowing for the department to essentially fall behind all of the contemporaries within the county. And that's not what Chesterfield should be doing. We should be leading in that capacity. We are a public safety department, but honestly, and I always thought that this board was pro-cop, but I mean, hearing the story tonight, I'm actually even not sure about that. But honestly speaking, I have a hard time thinking you're even pro-firefighter. Sometimes, and I hope all of you deny this tonight, speak on this, sometimes I think you're anti-firefighter. I don't know about you, what drives you, but when I was 9 years old, the thing that drove me was watching the events of September 11th. Because of that, I became a member of the Armed Forces. I became a firefighter. I became an EMT. We need to do better in this township for everyone.
Got to cut you off, Mr. Any further comments from the public?
Christopher Pierrick, 33862 Embassy. This is my first time coming to a board meeting. I've been watching them online, and I see that there is a portion of time given after every agenda item for comments from the public. Also, at the end of the meeting, there's a room for comments from the public. It obviously doesn't say questions from the public, but sometimes those comments include questions or looking for clarification on things, and I'm just wondering if those things do get addressed. Sometimes they are addressed at the end of the meeting when the board has their comment opportunities, but is there another way that those questions are answered, and can the public see those? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll address some of the questions individually or wholly as a board at the end in the board's comments. Any further comments from the public? I'll bring it back up to the board. Trustee Anderson.
Thank you. It's nice to know people are paying attention out there, what's going on. And to answer part of your question, at times during the board comments, when we speak, Trustee Joseph does a thorough job of addressing a lot of the loose ends, and sometimes a supervisor too, what the questions you may have at the end of the meeting during the allotted time. Keep this flowing. At the beginning of this meeting, there was an item that was pulled from tonight's agenda, Administrative Procedure Order 4-2018, one of the elephants in the room. This board voted 6-1 to postpone it. It may be coming back. I'd advise each and every one of you to go to your Chesterfield Township board or website, look at tonight's agenda, go down to item 9I, read this administrative procedure. See what's being amended on it. And it pertains to every one of you in this room, everyone out there, and anyone that lives or works in this township. Now, you saw it tonight, you were allowed 3 minutes on each agenda item if you so elected to comment on the business of the township. You were allowed 5 minutes at the end of the meeting for your comments. When this change goes through, or if it goes through, your First Amendment rights will be pared to 3 minutes at the beginning of the meeting with no knowledge of what's going on, and some of these agendas are like 2 inches thick. And you'll also get 3 minutes at the end of the meeting to say your words of wisdom. I have more comments about that, but I'll hold that for a later time. And we'll see. I know one person probably wanted to fly tonight to put it in there because maybe they don't want to hear you. And they're giving you a little sliver of your First Amendment rights. Be grateful on how your money is spent and how us wise people decide whatever's going on in this township. Enough for that. Just keep an eye and see if it comes back. Mr. and Mrs. Baker, as one individual, one board member, former police officer, I don't know what to say to you. I just pray that you, Josh, have a positive conclusion and a rapid conclusion to this entire dilemma. I don't know what else to say. The dog pond, the dog park. Maybe it'll end up a dog pond. Who knows? This is an interesting concept, taking the ball diamonds and what might be in an area of repair, not maintain disrepair. I do have some concerns. I know you gave us, young lady, you gave us some pros and cons here. Issues I'd be concerned about, I'd like to see be addressed before we go too far into the woods on this or in the brush is, what is the township's liability? What about individuals that bring unleashed dogs on township property? What happens if something worse happens? Who's going to see these dogs have rabies shots? I mean, I don't want to ruin anybody's parade here, but I'm interested in that. And I think if you time me at the beginning here, if this APO goes through, I'm revisiting here, we'll have 3 minutes to address all these things, good or bad. That's the time will be allotted. And I'm sure a few people up here, there'll be more than enough time for them to address your concerns. Anyhow, I hope everyone, I think we got one more meeting before Memorial Day, but looks like we might have finally had spring show up in Chesterfield. Thank you.
Trustee Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'd like to first addressed a couple of the newer speakers. Most impressed, Ms. Young, the quotes that you were attributed to in The Voice, and then your comments today came about after you spent some time kind of deliberating and researching, and I appreciated your comments very much. I appreciated the information that you gave, and I also was appreciative of your recognition of the APO, and you and the gentleman who spoke towards the end, I'm sorry I couldn't hear your name when you spoke, but I write down and I try, as Trustee Anderson said, to address every resident who goes to the podium. I know there are some who don't like that policy. They would like you to just kind of say your 3 minutes and then go away. I like and I try desperately to answer as many questions, and what I will say to you and what I'm most appreciative of is the fact that you came to a board meeting for no other reason. You weren't here to contest your water rate or anything that was specific to you, your neighborhood, which is unfortunately the times that we see an influx in residents that come to board meetings. You just came forward to say, I watched the meeting and I didn't particularly like the last meeting, but I don't want the correction to be my elimination and my inability to speak at future meetings. And to come forward and say that was most impressive, and I appreciate it very much. We will talk more about the dog park, and I would just say to our Township Parks and Rec Director, a lot of work has gone into the development of an idea. And so if you want to have innovative projects, you have to engage in a process of sort of green light thinking or brainstorming thinking. And when we do that, there are no bad ideas. Like, I think it is a wise thing to go out and look at options that you believe as our Parks and Rec Director to respond to positive programming that you think will be a good idea, and to go out and solicit input from residents and request public meetings is a great thing. And you're a very valued member of our township team to come up with that and to then take it out and say, hey, how about some ideas? So I hope you don't hear any criticism or concerns as an affront to your work, because it was good and I'm glad that you did it. The comments regarding the revision of the APO, that unfortunately is about the 5th or 6th time Trustee Vosberg has brought that forward. Each time it is, the catalyst seems to be consistent with the meeting before, where she loses control of herself and storms out. She did it again, and before she did that, she continued to shout, as she did tonight, at the chair and at the attorney. She yells germane or motion to adjourn. There was no recognition of her motion to adjourn. There was no second, yet she continued. It's an embarrassment, and I think just being an elected official for 2 decades doesn't give you the right to impose a self-coronation, declare queen, and then master of all rules. It's not appropriate. And when it came forward this last time, and I saw it, I contacted the supervisor, and I said, this is almost like predictable. I sat through most of the meeting. I had nothing really to contribute in a derogatory way, but I knew when the speaker, who seems to get everybody upset when he goes to the podium, started talking, and I could see the unraveling, the discontent and the adjusting of papers and the comments. I knew that somehow my board time was going to be in jeopardy, and it was, just like I say, as clockwork. I talked to the supervisor about it. He indicated to me that it was a concern of 2 fellow board members, and then I said, well, why is your name on it? Why did you prepare it? Why is it being prepared and presented as out of the supervisor's office? And I really don't understand that whole process. I just know that we had an ugly meeting. Shortly after that meeting, we canceled the next meeting, and then we had some private meetings about an agenda item that would restrict dramatically residents' ability to speak. And I didn't like it, and I tried to look in the agenda item to see where the recommendations come from. You know, what are we basing these recommendations on? And I realized that the source that I use is the Michigan Townships Association. So thankfully, you find people pay thousands of dollars a year for this township to be involved with the MTA. And the MTA is supposed to be an organization that represents well over 90+% of all the 1,200 townships across the state. So townships as small as 100 residents up to well over 100,000 residents pay an admission fee to be a participant and a member of the MTA. The exchange for that is that each of us are assigned a user ID and a password. And you can go into member-only parts of that website to extract data on really anything. There's a topic on dog parks and their research that Trustee Anderson was talking about, from liability to utilization, are all covered in various articles and research provided free of, no, not free, you pay for it, but as a membership fee available to me. And as I went through the MTA, which this board, unfortunately I don't have time to go to the MTA conferences, because the other thing that the MTA does is they throw very nice conferences, and there's a lot of food there and a lot of what some politicians would call networking opportunities. And so I noticed that some of my fellow board members like to go to the conferences. They're usually in places like Traverse City or so forth, but we have a lot of conference participation, and I wondered how many of our township trustees and board members have accessed the website. And so I got a couple of minutes that I'm going to speak tonight, and if during the course of my comments, any one of my fellow board members can log in to the MTA using their password and login ID, I will donate $50 to a charity of their choice, anything involving mental health. I will gladly make a donation in their name if they can produce their login credentials during the course of my comments. I don't think that that's possible for more than half of the board to present that, but when you go to the MTA, I spent a few hours there last night, you will see the website says the value of townships. And the value of townships, they list the top 10 things, and right on the front, townships are led not by an executive, but by a board elected by and accountable to township citizens who live in the community they serve. In townships, the people are truly the government's owners. Residents' voices are heard, which in turn makes them more likely to get involved. Townships are the ultimate example of local control. Community issues are resolved by locally elected officials who live there, and citizens in turn have the opportunity to influence the democratic process by expressing their views to local officials, speaking out in meetings, and engaging their fellow citizens. The MTA site goes on to talk about Township Board of Conduct and the support that board members should establish with the community and making sure that every opportunity is afforded them to speak. Another interesting document talks about the Township Board rules of engagement and the informing the community of significant issues, and the board shall conduct its business open to the public and will consider differing viewpoints in developing policy. I could go on for some time with the MTA recommendations regarding board involvement with the community, but the one thing that you might hear from somebody who talks about a business-like meeting and the proposed changes trying to bring about a more effective resolution, and how the 3 minutes at the beginning and the 3 minutes at the end is consistent with the county. And I would just say to you that the county form of government is an executive form of government. We are not an executive form of government. Our power comes from you. So hearing you while we would deliberate on regular agenda items would be stricken from this proposed policy that thankfully was removed by the supervisor tonight. The MTA specifically talks about the way that meetings are to be conducted, and that each person should be allowed to speak on an agenda item when the issue was taken up by the board. A delegation, and we saw this, if you recall, when we had an attorney come forward and he was representing an entire neighborhood. He was asked to speak on their behalf. He represented, and as he got started, he was shut off at the 5-minute mark, or the 3-minute mark, I think, is during his deliberations. And I made a motion similar tonight to allow Mr. Baker to finish, that this individual, as a representative of the entire neighborhood, should be allowed to extend his comments, and the board rejected that. But in the MTA recommendations, which we pay thousands and thousands of dollars to receive, if a delegation wishes to address the board, the delegation may select up to 5 representatives to speak on its behalf for a total time of not more than 20 minutes. See, I think we could have done a better job of hearing from our residents had we allowed their delegate to represent them. But we didn't do that because we found ourselves shackled by an APO system, and we thought we were being faithful to process, so we must continue with the APO. But I was making notes tonight of the supervisor's handling of the meeting, and it might surprise you that he violated the meeting APO several times, but I thought his violations were appropriate. And the first one started off when he engaged a resident at the podium with a question and answer. See, normally somebody might yell, "Jermaine, Jermaine," and we can't answer the questions, but the supervisor answered the question. He answered it, and it wasn't from a speaker that has been particularly kind to him, but it was a good deviation from the APO. He did it several more times tonight when he answered questions from the podium. We need to remember that our APO is simply a suggestion. It is simply the rules that we adopt that we hope will guide us through a board meeting, but the chair is responsible for maintaining order at the board meeting. The chair is the one that's responsible, and as long as you don't violate the Open Meetings Act, Mr. Supervisor, I like the way that you answered the resident's question. I think that's the appropriate way to go. I'm not going to spend my time critiquing and evaluating you, but I think the key to an orderly meeting is respect for the chair. And when board members who want to stress the importance of a business-like meeting only are interested in business-like meetings when somebody is complimenting them and saying things they agree to, you don't really have a democracy. You have a tyrannical system where those who aren't received well by the king or the queen stifle that speech. And that was the attempt that happened tonight. I don't know what happens when we bring the matter back, but I offered to you and an individual that no matter how angry I am with him or he with me, has always accepted my phone calls, and I'll always accept his phone calls. We seem to get in a room and figure things out. I would like to work with Trustee Demink. If you'd like to form a committee, I'd like to share with you some of the MTA things that I was able to uncover. I know Trustee Anderson has some very strong opinions, and I would like to propose an organized APO or a guidebook for our meetings that preserve the residents' right to speak. And if you would appoint that committee, I would like to serve on it, and I would, as I pointed out, 2 fellow board members that I think can, and of course, input from all board members, but a committee comprised of 3, so we don't have a quorum. We can come back to the board with a guidebook that preserves residents' ability to speak. Lastly, couple of regulars figured it out. 2 months ago, when I started talking about mental health, taking care of our own, I was admonished behind the scenes because I was potentially violating somebody's HIPAA. And even though I had the permission of this individual, I think he recognizes me as somebody that truly cares about him and supports him. and wants to see him connected to the services that he needs. I don't represent the township. I can't. Also in the MTA guidebook is no representative single can represent the entirety of the board. Unfortunately, the letter that went to your son that said you're terminated had my name at the bottom of it because it was done on township letterhead, even though I had no input in the decision. I begged for it. I asked for it at several meetings. I talked about the ability to come into closed session. Before I could even get the words out of my mouth, there was challenges to the attorney, and I understand that the closed session is something that can only be done with the permission of the employee, and I thought we could secure that. But what I wanted was the information that was, coming to me to come to the board before action to terminate was taken. And repeatedly, my emails, my phone calls, my text messages directed to stand down. This is not an investigation that is to be conducted by the trustees. There is an independent investigation that is taking place, and I said, listen, I'm no Nostradamus, but I think I know the outcome of your investigation because I believe what I'm seeing is hypothesis proving, not hypothesis testing. We're looking strictly at one issue that will allow us to neatly tie this up and will connect it to the gummy that I believe an individual who is suffering is in a failed attempt to try to treat an undiagnosed mental illness, and drug use is not uncommon. And I don't want to get too deep into the specifics because I pray that your son has a venue to challenge the outcome of this. And my role as he proceeds to that is to remind him, as I do, near daily. I just send him a text saying, I'm thinking of you, I care about you, and to stay strong. And I connect with him, and I took a piece from our township website. On our township website, there's a very proud declaration of his 2018 Officer of the Year. And I copied and pasted that, and I sent it to him, and I said, don't forget about this guy. Make sure you're taking care of this guy. And I'll stay with him, and I try to bring the attention of the policymakers and those who made this decision. I tried to bring your son's attention to them, and I also was concerned about the morale in the patrol. Because in addition to this situation that happens to him individually, I was invited to a local restaurant where about 20 of our patrol guys were there, and to listen to them talk about some of the things that they've encountered. And I know in my heart that, Ms. Baker, the things that you talk about, which is to really treat mental illness, you have to have a willing participant. You have to have those who are struggling, and unfortunately, those who need the hug the most don't look like they're not very huggable. They might be argumentative. They might be arrogant. They might be rude and nasty, and you experience that to some capacity. It's very difficult to reach somebody when they're in that state of mental crisis. But I talked to almost 20 officers who said, I could never go forward with the things I'm struggling with. And that scares me. It saddens me. It worries me. And I don't know who cares about that. So when I say, to you, what am I supposed to say to you when you come to the podium as a member of the person to sign that letter? I'm down at the bottom. Am I supposed to say to you, Mr. or Mrs. Baker, don't worry at all about your son's mental health and his career and the way he was treated, because here tonight we passed an Officer Appreciation Week proclamation and a Mental Health Awareness proclamation. That's enough for you. That's all that you'll need to go home tonight and sleep well, is to know that we've drafted and approved a proclamation. Don't worry about it. They're upset with me all the time. They're going to continue to be upset with me. Don't worry about that, Mr. Baker, because I don't. And I know what people stand for, and I get a front row seat every time they do something that is worthy of standing for, because there's a picture of it in the paper. There's a picture of it on our website. But when Josh is suffering in silence, and I'm begging, let's talk about this before we do something that we regret, you know, I understand that board members have coffee cups that say, you grow where you go, or whatever, and life's a garden and dig it. I know they have coffee cups like that. But when your moment to act comes forward, you got to act. And this was an area that I think we should have acted. And I cannot get into the particulars of whether or not he has a strong case, he doesn't have a strong. I believe it goes to a third party. I hope he continues to get the help while he makes his way to that venue. And I promise you this, because I promised the decision makers. When the third party views this the way I think they view this, then the people responsible will have to live with the decision they make. And I think I will be asking for their letters of resignation on that day, as well as my friend, the supervisor. Step down. If you screwed this guy's life up that bad and a third party confirms it, step down, because you can't do it again. And to anybody else that wants to ride along on the political train, and we got proclamations, and we get our picture taken on anything we do. We clean up something, we get our picture taken. They can do whatever they want. I just know in the moment to act with your son, I'm with you, I'm with him, I'm with your family, and I will support. I was worried about how he makes his insurance payments. I said to Trustee Anderson, and I said to all the patrolmen that were there that night, I will personally contribute to his COBRA payments should he need that financial assistance, because I think it's paramount that he continue the services that he's started. And anybody that wants to help with that, reach out to me. Not hard to find. And God bless you, your family. I'll continue to do what I can for the advocacy of mental health for your son. I'm disgusted and saddened by what's happened to him. And those responsible should be held to account should he be vindicated. Thank you.
Trustee Doing.
Friday, May 12th at 9 a.m., there's a tree planting at Pollard Park with partnership with Anchor Bay Rotary Club and Macomb County. These are some things that were missed at the opening things. Also, Friday, May 12th at 12 p.m., there's a ribbon cutting to reopen Brandenburg Park boat launches after the restoration. And the last thing, Mr. Speaker, thank you for your alternative viewpoint for the Chesterfield community. That's all I got to say.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I want to read from the same document that a previous speaker was reading from. And it's not directly from, but this was taken from the same document regarding the Michigan Open Meetings Act. And we are allowed to make board rules. And one of the rules that's currently in our rule, in the APO that was cited, comments should avoid coarse language, cursing, and personal attacks. The last meeting that we had, I walked out of the meeting because during public comments, it was not on a board agenda item that had to be voted on. It was personal comment time from someone from the public, and they were making very serious personal attacks, and that's why I walked out. Whether you like it or not, that's why I walked out. As soon as business that was over, then I came back in the room. I love this job. I love helping people. I love the things that we do here in the township, and I'm ready to listen to any constructive comments that anyone has. It's just, there's no reason that we have to listen to rudeness and false accusations that are being made. I would also like to address 3 of the agenda items for tonight, and that's to thank those, the Anchor Bay Rotary again for their generous donation for the pollination garden at the park. We are slowly making progress on that and at the Nature Center, and this is just another thing to make that look nicer and more attractive to the public. I do want to thank our police officers for their dedication and service to our community. And lastly, I want to thank the mental health workers of our community who work very hard to make a difference. Thank you.
Treasurer Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. In regards to what Trustee Vosberg said, that speaker actually made a joke about, well, I don't know if it was a joke, but it was an offhanded comment about people who are bipolar. And that same speaker came up tonight in support of mental health. Make your own conclusions with those types of comments. So that's sad, but it is what it is. I am going to address 3 speakers. Ms. Dunduvan, you don't have to come to the office tomorrow and stand here. I'll look into the matters. I wrote them all down, and I'll have somebody contact you with my findings, if that's fair. Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Baker, I'm very sorry for your loss. I understand that having a loved one who suffers from PTSD is very difficult, and I'm very sorry about that. And I have not heard about it until tonight, okay? And Mrs. Young, when cell phone service doesn't work, Wi-Fi is normally the backup. And other than that, I don't have anything else tonight. Thank you.
Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. First, I would like to apologize for my condition today. I'd like to particularly apologize to Supervisor Kersten and Trustee Joseph because they had to sit on either side of me and hear me blowing my nose and suffering with this little bit of a cold. So I apologize for that. I tried to do it as discreetly as I could, and I thank you very much for your patience with that. I won't say much tonight. People have said a lot, but I've always believed that this forum is meant for us to do the people's business, the township business, not our own personal business, regardless of how passionate we may be about it. Secondly, and that doesn't mean anything toward anything that anyone particularly said, that's my personal approach, that this forum is meant for a specific purpose, and that's to do the people's business, and that's what we should be doing here. I will take any action and I will take any vote that furthers that end. So when, if there is ever a concern or a question about a position that I've taken either publicly or a vote that I've made, please reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. If there's an issue that particularly pertains to my area of responsibility, which is records, elections, or any particular board business here that you have a concern about, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to have conversations with you about any of those things. I choose not to take up everybody's time addressing particular individuals, but I know Mr. Speak and I have spoken many times outside of this forum when we've had conversations about or concerns about things. I'd be more than happy to spend any of my, I don't consider my time here 9 to 4. It's any time. People have gotten emails from me at 2 in the morning. We've had conversations at 9 in the morning. We've had conversations at 7 o'clock at night. So I try to make it convenient for you. And I make myself available anytime that it is convenient for the public that needs to reach me. So that's just kind of part of the gig. So I'm happy to do it. I love having conversations with the public. I love having conversations with our constituents. So please reach out to me and do that. I just don't like to take everyone's time with one person's issue. I don't think it's fair. Everyone's time is valuable. And with that, I will end my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Just some quick comments. We've had great success with community-directed spending requests from Congresswoman Lisa McLean. We hope that she's going to pay us a visit here to the township pretty soon. Our request has been accepted from her office, and it is going actually through the federal budget process now. It is a substantial request that we may be awarded. Also, State Senator Kevin Hertel was here this week, paid a visit, toured the township. He was given a great tour. We also have a community-directed spending request from him, which is substantial, and we're just waiting for the governor to assign and approve the budget. State Rep. Jay DuBoyer also visited, and we're in constant communication with him. He toured. We've also made some financial requests through him, and he is also has a positive outlook for hopefully some funds returning to the township. Will address several major issues that we've been working on for the last couple of years. The boat launch, the ribbon cutting is this Friday. All are welcome. All are invited. And I'll go to some quick questions here on employee. Ms. Dunduvan, your issue is with the union. We've directed that to you. We've told you this is a union location, and you gotta talk with them about the return of the money. So can't help you there. Mr. LaFada, the BSNA has been implemented. It is progressing nicely. It is a work in progress, and as I told you when we made the request and the board approved the purchase, there was a 3 to 5 year implementation. We are ahead of the curve, as you like to say, and it is progressing nicely. The interface, the eMaid interface that you continue to mention, that is in place. It is a functional third-party vendor that we're working to integrate with BSNA. We'll continue to do that. As far as the last board meeting that I was on vacation with, yeah, I take vacation like everybody else does. I didn't know it was a big deal. There was no reason to cancel the meeting. Everybody here received an email. You wanted to hold the meeting. You didn't need me here. And it's funny, I got 0 replies. So it was adjourned. Brandenburg, yes, yes, Brandenburg does function at a deficit. It has historically. What we've done, though, is purchased it outright. We will develop a plan to make at least revenue neutral or at least functional. But again, that's going to take a couple years to put in place. Right now, we just took ownership of it, working on a plan to develop access to it and how we can at least make it revenue neutral. Unfortunately, there are several employee issues that can't be spoken tonight to in great detail, and I'm not even going to go down that road. I will say that we are in a mental health crisis, not locally, but nationally. We got several issues, and it is witnessed and seen on a daily basis. The most difficult issue for anyone to address, number one, is for the individual to ask for help. They don't generally do it. Number two, for the surrounding family members, co-workers, and otherwise to even recognize it. Again, these are friends. It's very difficult. It's a problem. I'm very proud of what we have here with our EAP, with our employee assistance. It's individually driven, but if somebody doesn't want to use it, and we've had stress debriefers, we've had events, most employees, particularly in public safety, choose not to participate, and that is a problem. We've recognized that. But it's not going to go away. And it's very unfortunate what happened. We've recognized it, but keep in mind, there's multiple stories to a scenario that has played out, and we have to let it play out. It's very unfortunate. Trustee Joseph, yes, this was my agenda item. I met with them after the previous meeting. They were the ones that entertained coming into my office. I did speak with you about it. My office is open for the next 2 weeks, and you are more than welcome to come in and sit down, and I'm sure if I called Trustee Demink, he'll come in and sit down with us, and we will fix it. But this is unnecessary, and I've said this now for 2 years. The personal attacks between board members here, I didn't shrug you off.
Don't address the public, don't address me. I didn't address you. Just
But you did. You did address me.
All right.
You addressed leadership. You addressed areas that you know I can't go down. And you should know.
And the same way you look at him. I wish you'd do the same thing.
Do what? Explain to the...
Look him in the eyes.
What would you like me to say?
Look him right in the eyes and tell him.
That is an experienced chief that knows exactly the position that we are in.
Well, he does.
Correct, he does. So, without going any further, it's an unfortunate incident, and we will manage it, we'll continue to manage it, and wish the best for everyone involved. Well, that being said, I have a motion to go into closed session. Trustee Demink. Supported by Trustee Vosberg. All those in favor?
You got to take a roll call.
I'm sorry. Please, Clerk Berry.
Thank you. Trustee Demink. Aye. Trustee Vosberg. Aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott. Aye. Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry. Aye. And we're in.
North Annex.
What's that?
North Annex.
North Annex at 9:58 p.m.
At 9:58.
Thank you.
Can we get five before we reconvene? I gotta get some water.
I'm so sorry, you guys.
What's that?
I'm so sorry. I was like trying to hack this way and blow my nose that way. I apologize. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know where
Motion to return to open session at 10:42. All those in
Support.
favor?
Aye. Whoops, you got to do roll.
I'm sorry, Clerk Barry.
Go easy.
Motion to return to open session at 10:42. All those in favor? Second, I'm sorry.
Support.
Support by Clerk Barry. All those in
Yes.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There's none. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Trustee Demink. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
All right,